good evening. This is Over and Over and Over again. My name's Richard, and this is the Arsenal review. Another, well, not such a previous few weeks, but it still wasn't too bad, was it? So we'll look back on the game from yesterday, the Southampton game. We're going to also look at the PSV game, obviously the one that we played last week, the one we've got coming up this week, and also the visit of Nottingham Forest, which could be quite fun following their result at the weekend. So we've got a lot to get through. So let's get cracking. Real Martinelli. It's now with Granit Xhaka. Is it going to be the third goal? It is the third goal. Granit Xhaka with it. That seals it. So, as you can see, we have got some guests with us now. Unlike Mikel Arteta, we can actually rotate our entire squad and we don't weaken the strength of the team. So, we've had to make a few substitutions today, but I say it doesn't weaken the performance any way at all. Welcome back, first of all, to Jerome. Obviously, your dad can't make it and you've stood in for him, which was very nice of you to do so.
That's it. Of course, yeah. Cheers. Thanks. Nice to be here.
Good to see you again. It's been a while, hasn't it, since you've been on? So it's nice to see you again.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, a few things have changed since the last time I was on. I believe so. Yeah, good to catch up.
Yeah, no, there's quite a lot has changed actually. Yeah, you're right. And back again it was on a few weeks ago. Good to always to speak to Tom, of course. How are you today, Tom? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been an interesting week. Numbers-wise.
There seems to be a lot of interesting weeks at the moment, doesn't there, when it comes to Arsenal? But that's not unusual, is it? Let's be fair. We've had a history of it, really. I suppose, really, then, there's only one place we should really start, and that's kind of going back 24 hours or so to what was quite an eventful game down on the South Coast. So it's difficult to know where to start with that game yesterday. A lot of things, again, a bit like the lead going the week before, a lot seemed to happen. And in the end, we've come out with a result which I still can't decide whether I think it's a point gained or 2 points lost. It's a little bit of both for me. We started well, got the early lead, and at that point, you expect to go on and win the game, I suppose. But as has been the case recently, we start well and then seem to fade away and the opponents get on top. Last week at Leeds we got away with it, got the win, and yesterday we wasn't quite able to do so. Lots of different reasons as to why that might be the case, I suppose, but ultimately we didn't take the chances that we had in that first half to kill it off, which I say has happened unfortunately too many times. I mean, Jerome, what did you make of that yesterday? Because bits of it were good, the performance wise, and other bits of it were a little bit worrying when you look at the last couple of games as well as a whole, rather than just play in isolation. A bit similar to the Leeds game, wasn't it? In the performance-wise, started well and then dropped off, and could have come unstuck again. Really, we were maybe fortunate in the end to get a draw, perhaps, wasn't we?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about was it 1 point gained or 2 points dropped? As the final whistle went, the only thing that I was thinking was that is 2 points dropped. I was super frustrated. And I think because we started so well, and we had plenty of chances, and I think if we're playing against a really tough team away from home and it's a very tight game and you come away with a point, you think, you know what, that's a point gain, that's a good point. But considering where Southampton are in the league, how well we've been playing, I think looking back, giving it a bit of distance time-wise, I still think that's 2 points dropped. Unfortunately, and I think our expectations now are so high that I think draws for us are going to feel like defeats, and yesterday certainly felt like a defeat. I think that's the most disappointed I've felt this season, even more so than after the United game, which we lost. I think that just goes to show how far the team's come and how well we've been playing, and it's a good sign really to feel like that, I think. But yeah, super frustrated, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I always look at it. I try to look at it like, for me, if you've gone away from home, you go behind and you fight back and get a draw, you kind of think that's a point game, regardless of who you're playing. Really, if you're behind and you come back, whereas if you go in front, particularly as you say against a team like Southampton, where they are in the league and what their recent results have been, it feels much more like 2 points drop, regardless of how the game went or anything like that. Just the fact that we led early on in that game, we got the platform to go on and win the game, and we wasn't able to do it. So yeah, no, I agree. I do feel it feels more like 2 points dropped than 1 point gained, even though we could have lost at the end because they were a better team in the second half, and certainly after they equalised, we could have easily lost that game. So, I mean, Tom, how did you feel about that at the end? I mean, it was a very, very mixed performance from Arsenal, wasn't it? I say mixture of some good things, very good things at the beginning, and some really poor things as the longer it went on. Really, I mean, do you feel like it's a point gained, or are you as frustrated as me and Jerome are about it?
I think it was one of those. I think going into this, we'd lost 3 out of 5 at their ground. I might be wrong on that, but it felt like that. It's definitely a game of the two halves. We were superb in places in the first half, but the second half was really quite disappointing and shocking, really. Couldn't hold the ball. Simple passes were being missed. All the simple things that Arsenal do, and in attacking senses, we failed to do. And we let them back in, to be honest. We took our foot off the gas. We looked a bit disjointed at the back, and they overrun us, and they deserved the point, and they could have got more. But how do I feel about it? We're still top of the table, 2 points clear. And who would have thought last season that we'd be in this position? Because we are overachieving, I think, at the moment. We've got a lot of games coming. We need to sort ourselves out. We need to put performances together, not in the first 45, but the whole 90. That's the problem. And I think we're getting gaps as well. When we're looking to the bench, we haven't got any real game changers at all. That's the problem. And I also see this in the Europa League as well. We're putting out a certain side, lots of changes. But can we, when it gets tougher, when it gets tighter, can we actually produce the goods? That's a big worry going forward.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree. I think maybe slightly, I would say I slightly disagree with the fact we don't have game changers on the bench. I think maybe we've got 1 or 2 that don't seem to be used very much. I mean, Manquillos springs to mind. If you're going to bring on a player to play in a wider position, which he did when he brought Eddie Nketiah on, who's a centre forward, why not bring on a player who naturally plays in a wide position like Manquillos? Why not do that? And then, if you wanted to make that, I mean, personally, why take off Martinelli when he was actually playing quite well in the game, and we needed a goal to win? I mean, it seems a strange substitution anyway. But if you're gonna change a wide player, bring on a wide player. He's starting Tomiyasu at left back when he's a right back, predominantly a right back. He's certainly a better right back, and we've got a natural left back on the bench. And then he makes a change. He takes Ben White off, who actually was doing okay. And it's like, hang on a minute, what's that? What are you actually doing? What are you watching that we're not seeing? To me, it was obvious. Take Tomiyasu off. That was his first obvious change because he was struggling at left back big time, and Ben White was doing okay at right back. To me, that was the first change to make, right? And he didn't. He took the wrong fullback off. Then you're looking, okay, you want to freshen up your front three. You want to get Eddie Nketiah on. He's a striker. Yeah, we need a goal. Play 2 strikers. Maybe take Martinelli off, but play Eddie Nketiah as a second striker. No, he didn't. He took Martinelli off and played Eddie Nketiah on the wing. And it's like, makes no sense. For me, that game yesterday, maybe a little bit similar to Lee's last week, and this has happened too many times. It's too inflexible. We have to play this one way only. And even though the game's not going well, I'm going to make changes, but we're still going to play exactly the same way. We're not going to play 2 up front. We're not going to change our system to adapt to the situation that we now find ourselves in against a team that have changed their style of play, as Leeds did last week. They made a sub at half-time. Leeds, we didn't deal with that. Southampton changed the way they played in the second half. We didn't adapt to that. And in the end, last week we got away with it. This week we didn't. And these worrying things keep coming back. It's not like it's something that you feel, okay, fair enough. It's happened once. He's going to learn. It's happened last season loads of times. It happened the season before loads of times. It's like, this is what's concerning me. I mean, Jerome, what did you make of all them substitutions? Because to me, it's like, again, he's done it before. It seems like he hasn't really got a clue how to change it when things aren't going well.
Yeah, I think not having Smith Rowe there is pretty unlucky that he hasn't had him to choose from. But you know what? To be honest with you, we've only really got a couple of our first team players out. We're lucky we haven't got 4 or 5 of our first team players out. We've actually been quite lucky for us. I think, look, the trouble is after the first 11 or the first 12, the difference in quality I think is still quite big. And to try and rely on Nketiah or Marquinhos to come on and change the game, it's like you're playing your last hand. You're really rolling the dice with that one. And look, let's face it, half time the game should have been over. You shouldn't have even had to make those decisions because you take those chances. And I think, like Tom said, I think really he summed it up. We took our foot off the gas when we went 1-0 up. I mean, Partey was like playing in second gear. Like, he looked amazing the first half, but it looked like it was no effort for him. But yeah, the substitutions, I don't think there's perfect substitutions, to be honest, for our team. Maybe he could have put Nketiah and Jesus up front together. Perhaps. I think he tried that pre-season, and we haven't really seen that since.
No.
I understand bringing Tierney on. I think it's, in terms of starting Kim, I know you didn't ask this question, but starting Tomiyasu instead of him, I think maybe he thought that Southampton were going to be dangerous from set pieces, and maybe he felt having Tomiyasu's height instead of Tierney might have been a good way of stopping scoring from set pieces.
He's already got 3 centre-halves in the team with Ben White, Gabriel and Saliba. If we can't deal with set pieces with 3 centre-halves already in the team, why does he need Tomiyasu as well? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the only sort of conclusion I can draw from that, because obviously going forward, it's a no-brainer who brings more to the team. Also, he played the other night.
We're still people short, though, aren't we? Really, like in terms of new additions, we need. I would say probably about 3 to bolster up the side, give us some more options, because I don't think we've got enough options.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when it comes to rely on players to come on to change the game, then I think you're in not danger territory, but it can go either way. I think it's hard to rely on your subs to come in and change the game with 20, 15 minutes left when, you know, they've got to maybe get time to get into the game. I mean, we saw that with the Vieira sub. I mean, Vieira came on. Obviously, I think he's a quality player, but sometimes it's hard to get into a game. And yeah, but you're right. I think we do need better strength in terms of coming off the bench to change things, but it just didn't go our way yesterday.
No, it didn't. And I don't think that the substitutions helped. You know, they probably hindered us, if anything. I just didn't think they would have. Yeah, what other options have we got? That is probably the ultimate point, isn't it? You know, who else have we got? Then currently, I maybe would have given Manquillos a go, perhaps in that game. Something a bit different he offers, maybe. But yeah, it is difficult because we don't have, as Tom rightly says, we don't have that strength in depth. And you know. I'm worried. I've got to be honest. I'm worried about this strength in depth. Not in terms of obviously challenging for the title, which I don't think we're anywhere near ready for as a squad anyway. But even just for the top 4, when you look at some of the clubs around us, you know, Newcastle now are making a play. They're going to spend more in January, I'm sure. You know, and the other teams that we're battling against have got much bigger squads, much better strength in depth. Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham. You know, they've all got more strength in depth than we have. And our first 11 is better than all of them. We can clearly see that. When everything goes our way, our first 11 in the team, we're a very difficult side to beat. But as Jerome said, we've been lucky with injuries so far. You know, we're not really missing that many players. And if we start missing 3 or 4 more, we are going to really. I think we're going to struggle just to hang on to the top 4 as things stand with this squad. But luckily, there's only 3 more Premier League games before the World Cup, and then January comes around. Well, we've got 2 more before January comes around Christmas time. But there's not many more games, is there, to get through before January? I mean, Tom, do you think we are going to spend enough serious money in January to turn us from a team that may be hanging into the top 4 to one that can be securely in that position for the rest of the season? Because it's going to get harder after Christmas with the Europa League knockouts, the FA Cup, if we want to bother with that this season, the Carabao Cup potentially. I mean, do we need to spend money? I think we do. But are we going to spend enough money to boost that squad enough to give us these better options in games like this and last week against Leeds when we're struggling and we need something different off the bench to come on?
Well, you know, it's Arsenal, isn't it? We don't like January very much. We don't. We've not got a history of spending, but we do need to make some additions if we're serious about keeping where we are. keeping in the top 4, going some distance into the cup competitions, we need to reinforce. We need some new additions, and not just any old Tom, Dick, and Harry. We need some quality players because the objective is to get into the Champions League. Now, if you went into the Champions League with this squad, we know it wouldn't be good enough because the quality is so high. So, I mean, I would love to say we'll get 3 players and we'll spend some serious money. But it's Arsenal, and we don't really have a history of doing it, so I can't see it happening.
No, I mean, you're right. We don't generally do that, especially, I mean, you saw what happened last January. We didn't sign anybody. And, you know, when you think back, just around Christmas time last year, we were in good form. We were in the top 4. Things were going well. That's the time to reinforce, isn't it? This January, it's likely we're going to be in an even better position because we could still be top of the league. You know, if the results go well over the next few weeks, we could be, you know, in January.
Well, everyone's trying to help us out, aren't they, Rich?
Well, I mean, you think about it though. If we're in January, when the January window opens, if we are still top of the league, which we could well be, surely that's the time for me to say to the club to look at it and say, you know what, this is the time to reinforce this. Let's push this advantage home and let's strengthen our squad and let's make sure that we've got enough to minimum to get in the top 4, minimum, you know. And if we don't do that in January, that would be, to me, that would be a big mistake. You know, we wouldn't have learned from the mistake we made last January, which cost us top 4. Is it, you know, surely we can't make that mistake again. You know, when it's obvious, isn't it? Now, from everybody can see now, we're 11 Premier League games into the season. We've played 4 games in the Europa League. Everybody can quite clearly see that the squad depth isn't strong enough to compete in the league, in Europe, and everything else. It isn't. That's obviously, we can obviously see that, can't we? But have the results covered that up a little bit? The fact that we are top of the league, 9 wins out of 11, you know, 4 out of 4 in the Europa League. I mean, Jerome, do you feel as though that could be the other side of it? It's obvious we need to strengthen, but are the results covering that up a little bit? And people thinking, maybe the people that come thinking, oh, we don't need to spend money. We're doing all right as we are.
No, I think, I know we're top of the league and all that, and I don't want to put a down on things, but there has only been 10 or 11 Premier League games. Like there's such a long way to go.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of results that don't go for us, and all of a sudden the table looks completely different. I'd like to think the people in charge are intelligent enough to know that regardless of where we are at the moment or where we're not, we need a bit of extra strength. We are very reliant on a few players. I mean, in particular, Saka and Martinelli. If anything happens to those 2, then you lose so much going forward. There's a couple of others as well, obviously, but to rely on those 20, you know, they're 21-year-olds. They're basically they're not carrying our attack, but they're playing a massive part of it. Look, I think they obviously wanted to sign someone in. They tried to sign Douglas Luiz, didn't they? So you're probably thinking they'll look to maybe strengthen the midfield, and we're definitely either 1 or 2 attackers short. So, you know, hopefully they'll do something in January. And obviously that'll be different to what they did last January when, you know, there was a little bit of extra push, and you know, you rightly said that could have got us top 4, and hopefully they will have learnt their lesson. And if they're going to sign someone in the summer, try and bring it forward to January. This World Cup is crazy that this World Cup is happening, and so God knows what's going to happen, you know, at the end of it, because you're getting people putting up now with injuries. Reece James, God knows what's going to happen, you know, during the World Cup, and then literally it's straight back into it. So it's such a crazy time. It's interesting to see what's going to happen.
I think the fixture list is just kind of killing us as well, like killing everybody. It's not just us, but there's so many games. I mean, it's ridiculous how many games there are. Makes your podcasting a bit difficult as well, doesn't it?
I mean, it does. It obviously does, because there's too many games and it's doing me in. But no, I mean, the fixture schedule this year to fit in the World Cup has been mad, and it does seem crazy that they've even contemplated a World Cup in the middle of the season. I mean, it's just absolutely madness. And yeah, we don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, do we? For us, for other clubs, injuries and God knows what else. And, you know, quite often after a World Cup, there's a lot of transfer activity because players have stood out in the World Cup and suddenly there's interest by players, this, that, and the other. And there might be a lot of movement in January due to that, who knows? More so this January perhaps than previous Januaries, where it's generally a little bit quieter, isn't it? This could almost be ended up like another summer window, couldn't it, in a way, because of the World Cup, and people will be wanting to buy players that have suddenly caught their eye. So I don't know. It's at this moment in time, this season so far has seemed. It all seems very surreal because one, we're top of the league and actually winning games for a change, so that doesn't seem quite right. You know, there's a break coming up in a few weeks' time in the middle of the season for a month, which again doesn't seem right. There's a World Cup in the winter. You know, you used to World Cups, aren't you? You can go in a beer garden, watch the World Cups in the sunny weather and that, and we're going to be, you know, freezing to death because we can't even heat our homes up. So God knows what we're going to do. So
Pint of the Parker.
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. So it's just going to be. It's all surreal at the minute. Nothing seems quite right, does it? And you know what's going to happen in January is anyone's guess really at this moment in time. But I think fundamentally we do need to buy some players. I don't think there's any question about that. And I just hope that the people in charge of the transfers, the club, the money people don't get a little bit too carried away with the results and think, oh, you know what? No, things are fine. It's all right. Let's leave it. We're doing great. Let's carry on. Hopefully that won't happen because I say that would be a disaster at this point because we've started to see the tiredness creeping in already, haven't we? A number of games, we started to look tired. We looked very tired against Leeds. We looked very tired yesterday in the second half. And yeah, this is where you need a squad. You need a squad that you can come in and can do a job for you. And that's what makes a successful team, isn't it? At the end of the day, you don't win anything with 12, 11, 13 players. You need 15, 16, 18 good players that can come in and do a job. And we don't really have that, do we, at this moment in time? But despite all of that, we are still top of the league. So let's not too get down about it. But it's, you know, I just felt as though that the last two games, you know, last week we beat Leeds, and I think we were all pretty happy that we'd beaten them. But I think that the problems were there for all to see. We were lucky. But ultimately, when you think about it, the last two games away from home, we've got 4 points. We could easily have got one because we could easily have lost to Leeds the way that game went quite easily, and we would have come out with nothing. And you know, we got a draw with Southampton. So I don't know. We've maybe come out of those two games in a better position than we perhaps deserved when you look at the way the games went. So we can't be too down it. But it's a little bit worrying for me, the performances, how they suddenly dropped off when we were, you know, it was free flowing. We were battering teams really not that long ago, were we, scoring goals, and now we seem to be really struggling. We can play for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, and then we run out of legs. But, you know, I guess that's, as we said, the fixture congestion, the games that we've got, and the lack of depth. But do you not feel a little bit, Jerome, that maybe Arteta isn't 100% trusting some of these players that he's got in his squad? You know, he doesn't want to give them much game time, does he? And then when they do play, there was that game, wasn't there, was it the game against the Norwegian team at the Emirates, where he did make a few changes, and then he brought on all the sort of first team players, if you like, in the second half. And then he said, well, they didn't look so good because they're not used to playing together. So why did you not give them more time together? Why did you then take them off with 35 minutes to go? You know, it's almost like he doesn't trust them enough. Is it because they're not playing regularly enough, or is it just because he doesn't feel they're good enough to do, or they haven't demonstrated they're good enough to do the job? I mean, that's a worry for me, though, isn't it? Because there is players, it's his squad, he's got to use them, surely, more.
Yeah. I think he's obviously got his preferred players, and I think, as an example of that, I think Jesus has started every Premier League game, and
yeah,
fair enough. But for Nketiah, that doesn't, you know, that's not great for him, is it? Like not started one league game.
It's exactly the same as last season when Lacazette was playing every week, even though he wasn't even scoring. And then Eddie was on the bench, and finally Lacazette got injured, so he had to bring Eddie in, and Eddie scored a few goals.
I think it is the same as last season, but I think I saw something whereby I think we're the team that's changed the least amount of players in terms of like our starting 11. But you can't knock the manager because they're top of the league, so it's hard to really have a go at his selection when the team are in the position they're in. I think the way he's managing this Europa League, I mean, we might come onto it like for the team for Thursday. I have been surprised how strong he's gone in the Europa League, but I just think it's due to lack of other options, to be honest. Especially in the midfield, like you've got Xhaka basically starting every game. Oh, yeah. Obviously, there's no El Neni that's about. He would be playing in these games. But yeah, he's got his favourites, and he's not afraid to just continue with them. But I don't know if what changes would you make to the starting, like the team that he's been picking? There's not really too many. I mean, the centre backs pick themselves. The full-backs, you could possibly argue with Tierney and Tomiyasu. Ben White's been unbelievable. Partey picks himself. Xhaka's probably first name on the team sheet at the moment. The front three pick themselves. Like you're going to play your strongest team. Like I think that's just how that's just the way it is at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, you are, and obviously, I think every manager is picking a team that they think's the strongest team for each game to win the game. But then, pretty much every team in the Premier League, I mean, as you said, we've made the least amount of changes. So other teams are changing their players because you have to keep the freshest players playing. I mean, you're saying who have we got, but let's be honest, we've basically got, yes, we've got one or two injuries, but we've almost got two players at least for every position. So we could rotate a lot more than we do. Not rotate everybody at the same time, but for example, as you said, the two fullbacks, we could easily be playing Tomiyasu and Tierney more, as both of them could play in the Premier League, not really going to weaken the side. Ben White could come in at centre back, give Saliba a rest in the odd games, not going to really weaken us too much. In midfield, yes, is Lokonga good enough? We don't know. We've not seen enough of him, have we? Maybe give him a game or two. He had to play when Partey was out. And in the front three, our biggest issue is the front three for me, because Saka and Martinelli are so important. We haven't got anybody who can come in and do that job. And is Eddie Nketiah as good as Jesus? No, he's not, quite honestly. So that's weakening the team. I think in the other areas we could maybe rotate without necessarily weakening things too much. I do feel in the front three is our problem. I also would look at Ødegaard for Fabio Vieira. I'd give Fabio Vieira more game time, because Ødegaard can be very ineffective. He likes his little fancy flicks, and he's quite good with, he can pass the ball quite nicely in little tight areas. But when it comes down to the battle that we had in the second half against Leeds, the second half yesterday, you don't see him. He's not there, because that isn't his type of game. And in those sort of games, we need something different, don't we? And I think we've got options. We can make more changes than we're making without necessarily massively weakening the team. And he's choosing not to do it. And I think is that a trust issue? I don't know. I mean, Tom, do you think we have got more options to rotate more than we are? I'm not saying make 7-8 changes every game, but we could certainly change a couple of players here and there without weakening it too much. I think we could.
Well, first point is Zinchenko is a big miss for me. I really like him as a player, and if he had been available, then I think he would have been straight in. We'd have another issue there, but I think the first 11 picks itself as it is now, and we have got limited options. The thing about the last two games is excellent in that first 45, and then I don't know what happens. Obviously, you've got to give the other team some credit, because Leeds came at us, Southampton did the same, and they gave us problems that we couldn't cope with, but we should have coped with. We're kind of making them look really excellent by all those simple things I said, like, the possession, the passing of ball, the short and the long passes were awful yesterday. It was like eye varnish at points in time. I think he's pretty restricted in what he's got to play with, to be fair. But Marquinhos, I'd like to see a lot more of, because I think he's an exciting, dynamic player. And obviously, you've got this. Who's got their toolbox out there? And you've got all these sort of problems with, picking your best back four. Ben White, obviously, I would put him in. He doesn't seem to trust Kieran Tierney at the moment. I don't know whether that's to preserve him for later in the season. But Kieran Tierney must be really frustrated, because when he was in the Europa League, he was playing really well. And then the following game, he was bummed off. He was out.
For a right back.
It doesn't. And I've got to be honest, I love Tomiyasu. I love his appetite. I love his desire, his physicality. But really, I saw him turned over a couple of times in the last couple of games. And it's just constant pressure, and there was no one else to relieve that pressure. So he had a little bit more work on his unfavoured side. But I think we're pretty restricted, and that's why the January transfer window is probably the key point.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting for certain, isn't it, to see what we do in January. First of all, we're all going to be waiting with bated breath, I'm sure, to hope that we make some recruitment in some way or other. But I still think that we could make more use of the squad than we are. And yeah, Kieran Tierney is a case in point. He should be playing more games. And I say you could rotate the centre back with Rob Holding, not Rob Holding, with Ben White could come in as a centre back, couldn't he? That is his more natural position. He's playing well at right back, but Tommy Asu is a great right back. So that's, as I said, that's not weakening the team, is it? Yeah, but I don't know. I do feel as though he should be resting, or not resting, but rotating the players a little bit more to keep them a little bit fresher, because as we're starting to see us looking very, very tired, and that's a worry when, you know, we've only a third of the way through the season, aren't we? So a lot of football still to play, and
I've got to go into back, Rich, for my boy Odegaard. I think some of the best things that we did yesterday was Odegaard.
For 10 minutes, for the first 10 minutes.
But that's enough to get your goals, isn't it?
Well, it wasn't yesterday. I know
it wasn't yesterday, but he's the boy to release. He finds that space. He finds those little corridors to pop the ball through. He might defending, and that is not his forte. And I don't really want him back there because he's given away penalties before now. So it's horses for courses.
It is, and I mean, funny enough, yesterday while the game was on, and certainly looking back on it, the one thing I couldn't get out of my head, and you know, you're probably going to not agree with me, either of you probably, but for me, I can remember not too long ago, we'd play some rather difficult away games, especially physical away games, and everybody would say Mesut Ozil disappears in them games, doesn't do anything, and he never used to like defending. He wasn't very good at defending. He couldn't tackle anybody, and he was very good with a ball at his feet. He could make these nice little passes. And what I'm seeing in Martin Odegaard is a younger version of Mesut Ozil in a lot of ways. Yes, attitude different, of course it is. Martin Odegaard's got a much better attitude, there's no doubt about that. But I mean, in terms of the influence he's having on games, and you know, when the going gets tough, when things aren't going our way, that's when you need players to dig in and fight a little bit more for the team. And I don't see that with Martin Odegaard, really. And I didn't see it with Mesut. We didn't see it with Mesut Ozil, did we? None of us did. That was why it didn't quite work out as it should have done. So I don't know. I'm getting a few little worrying signs with that. You know, you see more, you learn more about a team, more about players when things aren't going your way than you do when everything's flowing brilliantly and you're playing well. When we're doing that, Martin Odegaard looks world class, doesn't he? You know, when everybody's playing well around him, he looks brilliant. But when it's not going so well, he doesn't tend to get involved enough. He's not involved in the game.
But isn't that a possession thing, Rich? Isn't it? If you don't hold your possession, he looks worse because we're just losing the ball. Silly balls we were losing yesterday. Yeah, getting nicked off his toe. It was ridiculous.
No, it was, and that, you know, obviously the more possession of the ball that you have, the more your technical players are going to come to the fore, aren't they? Because you've got the ball. But this is what I'm saying. This was the same when Mesut Ozil, exactly the same. When we had possession, he was brilliant. But when we didn't, and you need to dig in and fight, that's when, and that's why it doesn't surprise me that Martin Odegaard keeps getting taken off every week, because he's getting taken off every week because for this reason, I think in certain games when that's what we need. Vieira's coming, and he's not really that sort of player either, let's be honest. He's not going to, you know, he's tiny, isn't he? He's not going to be able to win all these big tackles. I mean, Southampton yesterday, all their players are about 8'4". They're all like rugby players, weren't they? You know, that's the way that game went. It was just the way they were. But it seems to have started to be a little bit of a trend for me now with Martin Odegaard. He's brilliant when we're playing well. When we're not playing so well, he's struggling, I think, to stamp his authority on a game, which you need players to do that because things don't go well all the time, unfortunately, as much as you want them to. I mean, have you noticed that with Martin Odegaard? I mean, you know, I'm not saying, you know, we should get rid of him or anything like that. You know, I do feel he's a great player, but when things aren't going well, he needs, as the captain of the team as well, I think he needs to really step up and lead on that pitch, and I don't think he does. He's not.
Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's the captain of the team, obviously because of like being a typical or stereotypical leader. I think when Odegaard is, look, there's no doubt in his quality. I think every Arsenal fan could agree he is a quality player.
Yeah,
I think he's at his best, and you can see this when you watch him play. There's moments in games when you can see in his mind he's thinking, right, I've got to get on the ball. Like I want to be involved, and he can like. Not take the game by the scruff of the neck, but start to dictate and get on the ball. And there are a lot of moments in games when that's not the case. But if he's touching the ball the whole time, getting involved, he looks brilliant, and he can do that because he's got a bit of license to move into different areas of the pitch, collect the ball from maybe a centre back, perhaps, and that's when he's at his best for me. When you can see that he wants it and he wants to get involved. And I think he just needs to do a bit more of that, to be honest, in games, because look, the more he's on the ball, there's a chance, the more chance there is of him doing something. Because like Tom said, like he's going to create things for us. Whether we finish him off or not is something different, but he will create. And that's the beauty of Odegaard, is he could be having a proper quiet game. You don't notice him, then one pass and it's a goal. So if he was to just get more involved, I think maybe we wouldn't be chatting about him going sort of missing during games. I think he's made a bit, not a rod for his own back, Arteta, but you know, it is hard to keep bringing your captain off, isn't it? When you make someone captain, ideally you want them on the pitch the whole game, don't you? Really?
Of course you do. Yeah.
But I think he's made him captain because I think he just likes his sort of personality, his ethic, his work ethic, his attitude. That's why he's the captain rather than over anything else, I think.
Do we think the formation change might have done something to assist Odegaard as well, to keep him up? We could have like brought someone extra into midfield, maybe, I don't know, pushed Xhaka up, even though he's up quite a lot of the time these days. I'm glad to say I am a Xhaka fan at the moment. What's the time?
I've always been a Xhaka fan.
I think a formation change might have helped. That might be one of the problems we suffer from, because we don't change our formation depending on the opposition, do we? We just keep going with the same thing. We offered nothing new. There was nothing original. And then we brought on some subs that didn't have the chance to actually work.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you said a little bit earlier, Tom, about, you know, the fact that the last two games in particular, you know, in the second half, it's been a different game. The reason why it's been a different game in the second half of those two games is because the home team made adjustments to counteract the fact that they were getting outplayed in the first half. They made, you know, Leeds made a substitution with Bamford. Southampton just changed tactically the way they set up. And what did we do to counteract that? Nothing. And that's why the games in those second halves went the way that they did, because we didn't do anything to counter the change the opposition had made. You don't necessarily change your players on the pitch necessarily. You don't have to make substitutions to change. You can change tactically how you set up to counteract. And Arteta, in that game yesterday in particular, I noticed every time there was a stop in play for an injury or something like that, all the players were back over there and he was re-coaching them. It's like, hang on a minute, you've prepared for this game. You've told your players what to expect from this game, what they need to do. You've told them this for the last 2 years, some of them for the last 6 months, whatever. They know what they've got to do. Let them get on with it. Don't constantly have to tell them every little thing that they've got to do. If they don't know by now, they never will, because you know that I can imagine what training's like with it. If he's like that during the game, you can imagine what he's like during training, right? He's drumming it into him, right? When they go out on that pitch, they either know what they need to do or they don't. And if they don't know what they need to do, then that comes down to the fact he hasn't put it across right in the first place, or they're just not good enough. One of those two things. And if they do know what they're doing, which obviously we hope that they do, let them get on with it. Let them get on with it and make changes when you need to. You know, you don't need to coach your team every single 5 minutes. You know, let them play for 25 minutes, half an hour. Yeah, this is good. I'll sit back on my chair. I'll cross my arms. I'll enjoy this. Okay, this has gone wrong. Right, I'll get out there. You do this. We need to change this slightly. Yes, and then go back and sit down again for 5 minutes. But he doesn't. He doesn't even stay in his technical area. He literally walks up and down the pitch. He's on the pitch. It's like, I'll tell you, you stopped playing 6 years ago, mate. Let them get on with it. You take a little step back and chill, relax, let them play. And if it's not going well, then you've got the opportunity at half time or even during the game to make those little adjustments that you need to do to get things going right. You don't need to constantly coach them all the time for 90 minutes. You don't. And if you do,
you not think that's from the sidelines? He can see where those. I mean, it was pretty obvious to us watching at home in a comfy chair that we were getting rinsed down the channels. Yeah, we seem to get rinsed left and right, and maybe he's just sort of saying, "Look, you come over there or whatever." I disagree with the fact that you can't coach when you see things from a bigger sort of portrait.
No. Yeah, but he's doing it all the time for 90 minutes. So you can't tell me. So at no point in 90 minutes
is he happy
with what we're doing. Is he not happy with any of it at any point? Because he's constantly on at them, isn't he? From the first whistle to the last. You very rarely see him sitting down. He sits down for like 2 seconds and that's it. The rest of the time he's up. He's shouting it about. He's calling players over. He's cajoling them about. He's pulling them here. He's telling them there. Every time we lose the ball, he's going like this. Get back in your shape. It's like they know what they're doing. They're professional footballers. They're paid millions of pounds a year, mate. Let them do their job. You know what I mean? It just winds me up every single time I see it. He's got a
Rich, you've got to admit though, he's got a nice uniform, hasn't he? He's got the black sweater and he's got the grey trousers with the black shoes for the white soles.
Absolutely fantastic. He does look fantastic. There's no doubt about it. He does.
He's got a wardrobe full of those.
He must have, yeah. He can't wear the same one every game, sure.
What shall I wear? Oh, I'll wear the black top with the grey trousers. Yeah.
He does look smart, but I mean, you know, ultimately that's kind of not really the point. But yeah, he does look good. But he does need. I just think he needs to chill. Actually, I really do. I think he needs to let the players have a little bit more freedom, and I don't think that they. And I think sometimes that seems to be what's holding them back a little bit. Sometimes I get that feeling. You know, maybe that's not the case. I don't know. That's just what it feels like when you see how animated he is constantly. You know, his hair's going to fall out. I'm telling you. If he keeps on like that, he won't have that lovely hair for much longer. He's going to end up like Pep. I'm telling you. He wants to be Pep anyway. He's going to end up looking like Pep, isn't he? Let's be honest. But he does need to chill. Do you not think though, Jerome? Do you not think that maybe he needs to give the players a little bit more responsibility on the pitch rather than trying to micromanage them for 90 minutes every single game?
I'll tell you what backs up what you're saying, Rich, is the Man City game at home last season when he wasn't there and AirPod Albert was doing the coach or was taking the team that day. That backs up because they were unbelievable that game, weren't they?
The best performance we've had since Arteta's been in charge, that by a mile.
Yeah, incredible game. To be fair, I don't mind it. I'm okay with it because he might be spotting things in games that either we're doing wrong or that they're doing that we can counteract. So I don't really mind that, but I can see that it can maybe irritate some people and just let you know.
But if that's the case, though, Jerome, why do we not actually change anything? Why are we still doing exactly the same things constantly? We're not. It's not. If he was changing things because things were like in the second half yesterday, things weren't going well. If you could see him coaching and making a difference and saying, right, we're going to do this differently, but we're not. We're still doing exactly the same we were doing before he did it. It just, I don't know. I don't see what he's doing that's different and making it different.
It might be something very subtle that us mere mortals don't understand. It could be something like that. But maybe I'll tell you what the thing is. Like, when we had the during the sort of water breaks, it was fantastic then, wasn't he? They were because you could see an actual change in the team, whether it's intensity. But yeah, I can sort of see both sides. I don't mind him doing it, but at the same time, maybe against Man City at home, we should let AirPod Albert take the team and see how we get on.
I would be tempted to let AirPod Albert take the team more than just that one game, if I'm honest. Because I agree with you. That was, and I said it at the time, actually, one of the things that struck me most about, especially that first half, obviously things went wrong in the second half due to referee decisions and red cards, all that kind of stuff. But the way that we played that first half, you didn't see iPod Albert, did you, getting up and shouting and waving his arms about? But he actually sat down and watched the game, and they were brilliant. Let him do it.
He didn't want his AirPods to fall out, did he? He had to sit down.
Well, yeah, maybe that's probably what it was.
I think what we've got is Arteta is one of these modern managers, isn't he? And there's a lot of it going on in the game now where they have to get up and gesticulate and sort of point here, there, and everywhere. Although probably no one's listening. But he's one of those new sort of school managers. Whereas you had the Brian Cloughs and all that mob. They just let you get on with it, shout a bit, and then give you a bollocking in the changing rooms. So it's different stuff. But for me, I know we're going to disagree, Rich, but I think Arteta's done a great job up till now, clearing out all the deadwood, replacing them with players that play his style of football or Pep's style of football, and sort of cracking on. We're not finished. We're not the finished article by any means. No. We're getting there. And at least, I mean, bare minimum, you're seeing some performances that you're actually proud and happy about and you can smile about. Maybe not the last couple of games, especially in the European games, but generally, I think we're on the up. I think it's important to be optimistic about what's going on as well, not to be too downbeat because we got a draw and we don't win every match. No. That. But, some reality, I suppose.
To be honest with you, the fact that we've got a draw is not irrelevant, but that's not the main issue. It's more how we're playing, what the performances are like. And they have dropped off in the last few weeks. We were lucky against Leeds, there's no doubt about that. We shouldn't have won that game. Quite how we did, I still don't know, but we'll take it, obviously. And we'll take a draw against Southampton because it could have been worse, but we should have won, as we said. So, I don't know. There's still a lot of worrying signs for me underneath. and the results have gone well. A lot of the performances, as you said, have massively improved this season to what they have been, you know, compared to some of the games last season even. You know, we're playing a lot better overall, but there's still these worrying things underneath for me that haven't really changed too much. And if they don't change, I can't see how long term it's going to change enough that it needs to change to put us back where we want to be as a club, which is back challenging, you know, in the Champions League, obviously, as a first step, and then challenging to go far in that competition, challenging to try and win the Premier League, because, you know, that's ultimately what we're here for. You know, we're Arsenal. We're not, you know, we're not a Southampton, or we're not a Brighton, or we're not a team like that. You know, our aim, our job as a club is to get to a point where we can challenge for the title. You know, because that's where we should be as a club. And yes, it's not going to happen overnight, and we were a long way away from it before, and we're getting closer. Hopefully, we're getting closer. We'll soon find out at the end of the season, I suppose. But you know, that should be the aim of the club, to get to that point. And you know, however, and not it's taken nearly 20 years already to get to without a league title. So it's taken long enough. We've waited long enough. It's not like people show some patience. Well, I've waited 20 years, mate. I'm showing enough patience. I'm starting to get the up, because you know, it's 20 years ago. You know what I mean? You know,
I think the thing as well is we've
said about clicking my knees when we last won the league. You know what I mean?
I think the thing is we've seen the best part of the Wenger era, and that was amazing. And that's the yardstick we sort of try and judge everything by. And maybe that's a little bit dangerous, because, I mean, his last 10 years weren't the most fabulous, were they? They were patchy. And you mentioned Ozil earlier on. Just throw this in. Ozil and Alexis Sanchez, when they were together, that was amazing. And when Sanchez left, Ozil wasn't half the player, neither was Sanchez, just throwing that in. But we measure everything by Wenger's first 10 years. And we want to get back to that. Of course we do. We want that Arsenal. That's our DNA. That's the one that excites us. Those wow moments that you pay your money for, to jump out of your seat and see how brilliant they were, and, you know, clap and cheer and all that sort of thing. We as you say, we're getting there, but it's a slow process, and we've got to show a little bit more patience. Because from last year to this season,
20
a little
years,
bit more,
20 years.
I know. I'm feeling every one of them.
Yeah, so am I. No, but I mean, obviously we need patience, because the way that football's changed with the money and stuff like that, you know, we were never going to be able to, you know, with a stadium move and everything else that came at that time. It was, it all kind of came together, didn't it? You know, we moved stadium. Then, as soon as we moved stadium and our money was tied up, Manchester City came into the equation, Chelsea came into the equation, and suddenly, from being a top 2 of us a Man U, it's gone to a top 4, a top 5, a top 6, top 8 now when you look at it. So football has changed, and it is more difficult now, and it was never going to be easy for us to make that transition. Yeah, maybe Wenger stayed for too long, and so the process started later than it could have done, whatever. There's arguments for that. I mean, but ultimately that's in the past. What we need to worry about now is what's happening now. And yes, we are moving forward. We have moved forward this season, there's no doubt. We're top of the league still. Do you know what I mean? We're top of the league, and it's nearly November. So when was the last time that happened? Probably 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, maybe. I can't remember. It seems a long time ago, doesn't it? So obviously there's progress there, but the underlying thing for me, the issues that I've seen negatively are still there fundamentally. I don't see an awful lot of difference. It's just that we've got a couple of better players in. The team have had more time, or the system, they've had more time to work on it, so it now works more often than it doesn't, and stuff like that. But it's funny, isn't it? Because on Saturday was our first draw of the season. Our first draw since, was it January? You know, we're not drawing games. Like, we either play well and win, or we lose, and that's still an issue. I think you need to be able to draw games, and in a way, Saturday was good because Sunday was good because it meant we drawed a game that we didn't play very well in. Usually, we may well have lost it in games. We were losing them before. Last season, we lost 13 games. We drew 3, didn't we? So we needed to turn half of those defeats at least into draws, and I suppose yesterday we did do that in one of those games. So that's maybe a positive side in a way. But I don't know. There's still these issues that are still there. I can still see them, and they're still not improving enough for me after this amount of time. And then I look at Newcastle, and look at Eddie Howe's come in a year, and suddenly look he came in, they were in relegation trouble, right? They'd been rotting, that club had been rotting for years. They were in a far worse state than we've ever been, right? Under Steve Bruce and before that, and their owners and stuff like that, right? And they were rotting away as a club. And he's come in a year. Yes, he spent some money, but we spent money. Look what Newcastle have done already in actual. Yes, they're not going to finish in the top 4 necessarily. Well, they might do, but the season hasn't finished yet. But look how quickly they've made progress. And why has it taken us 3 years to get to this point now when it's taken Newcastle a year, just over a year? I don't understand that.
The Emirates. That killed us. I mean, Wenger said about the stadium change when we went there.
Years ago.
Yeah, I know, but we've been suffering for about 10 years after that. We didn't spend any real money. I think we got strapped. We had to sell player after player after player after player.
Then we did. Yeah, for 10 years it was a problem. I agree, but that was a long time ago. Now we're out of that. Now we broke our transfer record 4 or 5 times in that period in those intervening years, haven't we? Ozil, Sanchez, Aubameyang. We broke our transfer record time and again. We spent money. We have spent money. We spent 400 million under Arteta, I think it is, in 3 years, and to make such small steps forward so slowly. And and Newcastle is the example because they spent less money, less time, but look where they are. Look at the progress that they've made in that short. And they were in a far worse state than us a year ago. They was in a mess.
I think as well was
a mess.
I think as well with the Cronkies, they got it wrong when they took over the club. The structure was rotten from top to bottom. We had loads of players. They bought in Raul. He was the big man who was going to sort everything out. What he did, he put it in his back pocket. But he did, didn't he? He made these crazy deals, 70-odd million for Pepe, and it was a waste of time. So we've had to really start again as a club from the top to the bottom, or the bottom to the top, whatever direction you want to go in. And I think
even so, that's still we're still 2 or 3 years along the line. We're still 2 or 3 years along the line, and we're still where we are now, as opposed to where we in that time where we could have been potentially if we'd moved at the same pace that Newcastle have just moved at.
I think the difference between us and there's a few differences between us and Newcastle. We had to pay players to leave. I don't think they had to do that. The amount of churn in that squad that Arteta had, I think since he came in, there might be maybe 3 or 4 players in the squad that are still there now than when he took the job. I think with Newcastle, they've spent 200 million, I think, in 2 windows, something like that. And obviously there's different league in terms of money. And Rich, where would you rather be now, in our position or in their position in terms of the league table?
At this moment, obviously, I'd rather be top than be fourth, of course. I mean, that's obvious, but it's more about where the direction that you can see the club going in and how quickly they're going to get there. Yes, Newcastle are in a different financial situation to we are. We know that they're in a very similar financial situation to where Man City were 2 years ago when they first got all their money and all that kind of stuff. But I was just looking at it more from the fact that a year ago when Eddie Howe came in at Newcastle, the new owners had just come in, that club was a mess. They were much more of a mess than we were in when we had Raul and all them sort of people messing things about. They were far worse situation than we were. And yet, in that shorter space of time, they've progressed more quickly. That's the point I was making. I think, I understand what you're saying. I think because what we've had to do, we've had to knock it down and build, whereas they've just been able to build. They haven't had to get rid of 15 of their first team squad to do it. Like they've just had to add. They added a few players. Obviously, the coaches have been very good. And to be fair, I watched the Newcastle game yesterday against Spurs. They looked excellent. They actually reminded me of some of the football that we've been playing this season. But they looked amazing. They really look good. And I think they're going to be a big challenge to everyone that's going for these Champions League places because they're brilliant at home. Obviously, they're very good at home. But when they start to win difficult games away from home, that's when they become a bit of a problem. They become a different animal when they can do that because they're not just relying on the sort of home crowd to sort of see them through games. And I think I can't remember who the manager was before at Newcastle, but obviously they were well underachieving because they had a lot of those players still. Like they still had. You had your Wilson was there. Almiron.
They had the Brazilian that they've moved positions, the midfield. Joe Linton. They've kept a lot of these players. They haven't. The difference they've had to make in terms of personnel isn't as much as what we've had. We had the Aubameyang situation, Lacazette, Ozil. He's been dealt a right bad old hand, Arteta. He had to change everything. And maybe Newcastle have done it in a short period of time, but I think we just had so much more work to do.
I think they made wise buys as well, didn't they? They didn't sort of just splash the cash and hope. They bought some seriously good players. They've got a decent team on paper. They've got a really decent team.
And And they've got good backups as well, actually, Newcastle. They've got a good squad, actually. I know you've got to think they're not in Europe this season, so they've only really got the Premier League plus the FA Cup, which I'm sure they want to do well in. So they can, they can play a lot stronger team every week in the Premier League, especially in the second half of the season. And I think that's going to prove to be really, really important. And I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle do make top 4 this season, actually.
Yeah.
At whose expense, we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully not ours, but I do think they'll be in the top 4. I think they've got a really, really good chance, because I agree. I think that they look now like a proper team, don't they? And the fact they can go away to Tottenham and won every single home match, and not only win, but actually dominate Tottenham for much of that game, and deserve to win as well. It wasn't like that we're fortunate. They deserved to win that game. They were a much better team. And yeah, okay, it's easy to be better than Tottenham, to be honest. But
what did you think about the first goal? What did you think about the first goal? Foul on Lloris or not?
If it had been disallowed, I don't think anyone would have been surprised.
Yeah.
Because usually goalkeepers are very well protected, aren't they? Usually a goalkeeper falls down and it's a free kick. And I was quite surprised it was given, bearing in mind it was the goalkeeper that was in. But I didn't think it necessarily was a foul. I actually think that the goalkeeper, Lloris, ran into Wilson, didn't he? He sort of came out to get the ball, wasn't going to get there, and then he just ran into him. And Wilson almost slowed down, didn't he? To avoid the contact. But like Wilson said at the end, he goes, I wasn't going to move out of his way. Of course not. He's not going to move out of his way. And he just ran into him, didn't he? So I think it probably was the right decision to allow the goal. But if it had been disallowed, I wouldn't have been surprised, because 9 times out of 10, that gets disallowed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, fair play to Newcastle. They're doing well, and they deserve where they are. I mean, in the league at the moment, at this moment in time, they're really starting to. They've lost 1 game this season, like us. They've just drawn a few too many, But it'll even itself out, I'm sure, over the course of the season. Actually, while we've been going on about all this kind of stuff, there's been quite a lot of comments actually that I've missed. So we'll go back through some. We've got Neil in the chat there. He says, "Apologies for my absence tonight. I wish you all a great chat." Yeah, cheers, mate. Good to see you. And he says, "Oh my God, I thought that was Melvin who had found his pipe and went back in time and fell into this." Well, the family likeness, you can't escape it, can you? That's what it's all about. And Neil says, I was seriously frustrated, obviously, talking about the Southampton game. Yeah, I think we're all pretty frustrated that, it's just the way it went. Delboy Gunner TV says, evening, Rich and Jet. Good evening to yourself, mate, as well. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Please check out Delboy Gunner's TV channel as well. He's got some great stuff on there. Terry's always in the chat. He said, evening, Richard, Jerome and Tom at Plus All in the chat. How you doing, Terry? Good to see you. What else have we got? Shane says, who can we get in January? Will clubs sell the quality players? Well, yeah, that's an issue that we'll have to look at a bit closer to the time, I guess. There'll be players that, if you tempt them enough, offer them a bigger contract that they want, you can generally get most. And if you offer the club enough money, they'll be part of them, won't they? But yeah, we'll have to see. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Neil says, I'm 100% sure we will invest in January if players are available. Yeah, availability is an issue. Obviously, if a player's tied into a contract, it's difficult to get out of them, isn't it? So we'll have to wait and see.
It's not going to be cheap.
Sorry?
It's not going to be cheap, that's for sure.
No, it's not going to be cheap. No.
Everything else.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? If you want to compete at the top level, if you want to win big trophies, you have to spend money to do it now. That's the way football is. If you're not prepared to do it, then we need to accept that we're never going to do it. And we're just going to be trundling along hoping to get top 4 every year, which we did it long enough. And I'm kind of sick of that now. I want to actually do something a bit better than that now. I want to, move ahead from that. And Terry said, he's made a good point actually. A lot of our problems stem from Neil getting everyone excited, keep saying we're going to win 4 or 5 million every week. I mean, you never do that, do you, Terry? You never say we're going to win 4 or 5 million every week. But yeah, maybe Neil keeps saying we're going to win the league every week. Maybe everyone just believes him and thinks we are going to win. Well, with Southampton, it feels like a disaster, doesn't it? But anyway, and Neil says, we are still winning the quad. So there you go. You see, I'm not quite sure which quad he means, but anyway, I'm sure we James says, let's be honest, if we put away our chances and add good officials, we might not be focused on squad depth with a few games through the window opens. Yeah, and I say last week we got away with it at Southampton, at Leeds. We may have got away with it yesterday. Yeah, a couple of decisions which we'll maybe talk about as well could have changed it. But ultimately, as we've mentioned, in that first 25 minutes, we had enough chances to win that game regardless. 2 or 3-0 up, game done. Southampton don't come back from that. The game's over. And that was our own fault. We didn't take them chances. So we can look at refereeing decisions. So we could have had a penalty for this, that, and the other, and 1 or 2 other silly decisions that went on. But ultimately, we controlled our fate in that game by not taking our chances when we should have done at the beginning of the game. We were on top. I'm not looking to blame I'm not looking for excuses other than the fact that we had the opportunity to win that game and we didn't take them, and we can't have any complaints about that really. So obviously Neil's his mum's not well at the minute, that's why he's not here, so he's just sort of saying hopefully she's better soon, as we all do. So he says Arteta does like to give big pay rises and then put them on the bench. Well, yeah, he's done that a couple of times, I suppose, but maybe he's perhaps learned from that. Let's hope so anyway. Neil says there, the appalling officiating didn't help our flow. It's not all down to the players and tactics, but yes, all contributed. Yeah, but again, we had our chances at the beginning. We could, if we were 3-0 up, who cares what the referee does after that? It doesn't make a difference. It's game done. Mark there says, depending upon availability, I think we could push White into a defensive midfield position. That's an option, I suppose. This assuming Tommy is right back and Tierney is left back with Gabby and Saliba in the middle. Yeah, but again, you see, it's playing a player. I know he's played defensive midfield before, hasn't he, Ben White? He did it quite well was it when he was on Leeds, wasn't it? Alone, he pretty much played the whole season, didn't he? For Leeds, so he can play there. I think that was in the Championship though. But I like to see players playing in natural positions. I think if you play your players in their right positions, they're generally going to play better, aren't they, than filling them in somewhere else. And I think that's been the problem with Tomiyasu actually. Shane says there, I think Charlie Patino is more ready to play in Premier League than Vieira. I like Vieira, but he gets brushed off it like a bottle of wine. I mean, Charlie Patino is playing well in the Championship, which is a more physical league, you have to say. But I don't know. Would you like to see Charlie Patino maybe come back in January, perhaps, Jerome? And you think he could come in and maybe do a job for us?
I think it's a big ask of him to come in and play for a team that's pushing for top 4 or wherever you want to say say that we're aiming for this season. I think it's too much pressure to put on him. Let him play the whole season and go from there.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree with you. And he's going to do his development good anyway, isn't it? Being in the Championship for a season, he's doing well, and long may that continue. But yeah, I agree. I don't think it's the right time to bring him back in January, even though he may well be able to do a job. I'm not sure. But would you do that, Tom, as well? Would you just keep him at Blackpool for the season and let him learn and develop there?
Yeah, he's doing really well. So leave him be. Don't mess about with it, and then judge it at the end of the season whether he goes back on loan, maybe to Blackpool again, and see where it goes from there. I think he needs a couple under his belt. It worked for Smith Rowe.
It did work for Smith Rowe, yeah, and it's worked for other players. It worked for Saliba as well, hasn't it? Let's be honest. He went out on loan 2 seasons, and it's worked for him. So maybe that might be the path that Charlie Patino goes down. Who knows? But yeah, he's certainly doing well. It's good to see one of our own academy Hale End guys coming through and playing well on loan. We want to see that, don't we? Mark C says we most definitely miss Zinchenko's passing. Yeah, we've missed him. There's no doubt. He's been a great player. And the sooner he's back, the better. Neil says can't wait for Charlie to break into the first team. Yeah, I'm sure he will eventually when his time's right. So he says, Neil, stop trying to wind me up. No, he's not winding up. I know he doesn't really think we're going to win the quad. John's in the chat as well. He says, hi, everyone. Only joining. How you doing, John? Good to see you again, mate. Hope you're well. Shane says, Erdegaard can't always be a show pony. As a captain, we need him to be a workhorse, just a bit braver in the fight. Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of point I was making earlier, Shane. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Mark says micromanagement. Yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about before when it came to Arteta, definitely. Mark C says West Ham 1, Bournemouth 0. Obviously, the Monday night game. Bournemouth are doing well, and now they're kind of losing again, aren't they? But anyway, I'm sure they'll be all right. Neil says Wenger was the opposite, and he got criticism for that. Yeah, he did. He was the opposite. Yeah, he literally sat on the bench most of the time, didn't he? Apart from at Man United that time when he got sent off and had to stand
struggling with his zip. He could never find his zip.
That's the way he sat down, actually, because he couldn't get his zip up. So he thought, I'll just sit down. He's probably done. So that's probably what happened there. Shane says Arteta is very animated on the sideline. When Pepe used to play, he always looked confused from his instructions. It just looks like a game is supposed to be steroids, maybe. But anyway.
Charades.
Sorry?
Charades.
Charade. Yeah, Charade. Yeah, I see what you mean. No, it is exactly what it is like, isn't it? Is it a film? Is it 4-4-2? Is it 4-3-3? Who knows? Who knows what it is? We can't figure it Mark C makes a good point. Some of the players look jaded. Yeah, they do. And that's because they're not being rotated enough, which is what we said before. John says it was said Southampton was going to be difficult. Yeah, we said that last week. We escaped a result from Leeds, so it balanced itself out. Yeah, I thought that a little bit. Yeah, it probably did balance itself out a little bit. If we'd won both of them games, it would have been very fortunate to have got 6 points for the way them 2 games went, actually. So we got 4. Which is probably more than we perhaps could have done. So Neil says they're nice and pragmatic. Yeah, it's spot on, absolutely spot on. Mark says, will you give Emery a warm welcome when he comes back to the Emirates with Villa? That'd be interesting, won't it, actually? I would like to, I mean, he did come back to the Emirates, didn't he, when he was at Villarreal, actually. He seems with Villa in the name, so it kind of suits him, maybe. But there was no crowding, was there, I don't think, when we played Villarreal, because that was... Or was there? There might have been some crowd. It wasn't many, was it? I think we only had like 2,000 or something when it for that semi-final. Was it? I can't remember.
Something daft.
So he has come back already to the Emirates. I don't know what sort of reception he would have got or what reception he will get. I mean, I've got nothing against Emery. You know, he did his best that he could do. He wasn't the right man at the time, and that's it. But you know, I'm glad he went when he went. But I've got nothing against him. I'll give him a little clap if he comes back. Shane says, yes, Mark, I should think so. It'll be a good evening. It will be a good evening, yeah. Definitely be a good evening if he comes back. I don't think there's any doubt about that. John says, I sound like a stuck record, but unless quality signings are made in January, there's no way this squad will compete. Yeah, exactly. You're 100% right. I think we all know that because we've seen that already now, haven't we? We're starting to run out of legs already, and we've only played 11 games. So God knows what's going to happen when we play 25 games with the same squad. So yeah, John says, aren't Arsenal one of the wealthiest clubs in Europe? Potentially. Our owners are certainly got enough money, haven't they? They got billions. So yeah, we are potentially one of the richest clubs, but it doesn't work like that always, is it? Terry says, not everyone saw he's off to work. Oh, Terry's off to work. Okay, mate. Good to see anyway. Yeah, do well. In work. Neil says Newcastle only just breached the top 4. Whether they remain there, time will tell. I've not won anything yet. Not the correct time to compare yet. Yeah, but you say that, Neil. But how many times in the last 2 years have we been in the top 4? We didn't. You know, last season we were in the top 4 a lot of times and blew it. But the 2 seasons prior to that, when this whole thing started, we were nowhere near the top 4. Nowhere near it. Newcastle are in there already. Yeah, they might not stay there. A lot of competition, but the progress they've made is quicker than our progress. That's the point, really, I suppose. Mark C says, plus we signed Pepe, and that was a player Enway didn't want. He didn't know he wanted Zaha. Yeah, he did, and that's unfortunately what he got left lumbered with. John says there was money wasted on players who weren't Premier League material. Contracts were allowed to run down on good players. Arsenal were badly run when Dean went. Yeah, 100% agree with you. Definitely. That's been the biggest. That's been the biggest issue for Arsenal in modern times, isn't it? David Dean leaving. I can't wait to read his book actually to find out a bit more about all of that kind of stuff. That'll be really good. Have you? Is it out yet? It's not, is it?
Yeah, I've read it. I've read it.
Is it good? I bet it's
excellent.
Good.
Excellent. Yeah.
Is there a lot of stuff that we wouldn't have known about in it?
Yeah, you know what? There is. It's yeah. There's a few stories maybe that you might have heard in the past, but he goes into a bit of detail on a few certain things. It's definitely I really enjoyed it. Yeah, very good.
Has he got a lot about obviously how he left and how that came about and what happened?
Yeah, he goes into quite a bit of detail about that, how he left, how he got involved in the first place, a few of the signings that happened. It's very interesting. Yeah, highly recommended.
No, I'm definitely going to get that one. I've got most of the other books. I need to get that actually because I wasn't even sure if it was out. I know he did some book signings, didn't he, recently?
That's where I got it. We met him at the Tollington. Yeah.
Wow, man, that was good.
It was good. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Have you read that book, Tom?
No, I haven't. I've been meaning to pick it up, but I haven't got round to it yet. It's all these kids running around, and then a busy football fixture.
Yeah, well, it's been a busy fixture. There's not much time to sit down and read it in a minute, is there? Do you know what I mean? And do anything else. But I'll definitely need to get that book because I mean, David Dean. I remember when he first joined the board in 1983, and
that's it. Yeah,
instantly you could see the impact that he made. You know, not on the pitch. It took a little while longer. You know, we had about 3 more years to wait until George Graham came along, but in those 3 years, you could see straight away the changes he was making. So, the marching band got booted out. He put a public announcer in with records playing instead. He changed that, and changed the program, made it a more modern style. And he updated everything. And you could see straight away that the club were changing direction. And it took a while on the pitch for it to work. But, I mean, David Dein, for me, he's probably more important to Arsenal's history than any manager that we've had in modern times, probably the same impact that if you go back in history for someone like Henry Norris, who got us into the first division all that time, all them years ago, and got Herbert Chapman into the club and all that kind of stuff. Those two people have probably had the biggest impact on Arsenal's history, both the older history and the modern history, than any player, any manager that we've ever had. And David Dein, for me, he should have a statue outside the Emirates without a shadow of a doubt. Because without him, we wouldn't even be at the Emirates. We'd still be at Highbury, probably with 16,000 fans coming on a midweek game. You know what I mean? That's what we were. And he transformed it. He did. David Dein, to me, he's an absolute legend for Arsenal. I love the guy. And I will definitely get.
What a drop down, Rich, to go to Gazidis. That was a drop down.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's what I mean. As soon as David Dein left, it just fell apart, didn't it? Very, very quickly. And now we're trying to recover from that now. And yes, it's taken a long time. And will we ever get back to being run in that way that we were run with? I mean, yes, I didn't always agree with everything David Dein did. He was the one behind the Premier League and Sky, all that kind of stuff, which I kind of disagreed with. So I don't agree with every single thing that David Dein did, but the impact he had at Arsenal is unparalleled. And respect massively. I love the guy for what he did for Arsenal. And yeah, it's never been the same since he left, has it? Even Wenger said, Wenger almost left, didn't he? When David Dein left. It was David Dein that told him to stay, wasn't it?
Yeah, he mentions that in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, absolute legend. So yeah, definitely get that. I'll be definitely getting that book. And definitely.
I actually met him outside Cardiff when we played Chelsea in the cup final, and he shook hands with me. It was like, brilliant! I've met the man.
Yeah. The man, the legend that is David Dein. Absolutely, is a legend.
What did Wrighty say? First one in, last one out. He watched every single team that Arsenal put out, which is amazing.
But that's what you want, you see. You want the guy running your club, you want them to be a fan because they want what we want, don't they? Which is the biggest, most amount of success that you can get. And we haven't really had that, have we? There's no way the Kroenkes are fans of Arsenal. They're fans of money and they're fans of American football and baseball, whatever else they're involved in. David Dein was a fan of Arsenal, and that's what we need. We need somebody like that now, someone running a club. We need a rich fan somewhere who's got the money that he had to buy in a club and take us where we want to go, because that's the way to do it, isn't it? But anyway, John says there, Bazuna is a good keeper. He made a couple of good saves, and the penetration wasn't there. Yeah, I mean, he's Irish, isn't he, Bazuna? Is he not? Does he play for Ireland? He's not Irish.
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah.
Obviously, John's from Ireland, so he probably knows a bit more about Bazuna than we do. But yeah, he certainly had a decent game yesterday. He looks a good goalkeeper. Let's have a look. John says Unai Emery will always be welcome back to the Emirates. Yeah, I've got no problem with him. I had a problem with him 3 or 4 years ago, but I don't have a problem with him now. He's gone. He's done well.
Do you know what I think, Rich? He was a patsy for the club because it was so disjointed, and he never stood a chance. I
agree.
The hierarchy just put someone in. They just had to put someone in. They put him in, and it was doomed to fail. He never got the support.
It's like that. When you're replacing somebody such a legend in Wenger, the same Man United had the same problem. They appointed David Moyes. David Moyes was never going to be a success at Manchester United, and they never even expected him to be. But you've got to replace that legend with somebody. We had the same problem with Wenger. We had to replace him with somebody, and I think that they picked him for no other reason. In fact, he won a few Europa Leagues, and they thought, you know what, he might get us in the Champions League by winning the Europa League. So they thought, well, we'll get him in for that reason and that reason only. For me, that's why they did it. But anyway,
he nearly pulled it off as well, didn't he?
He almost pulled it off, yeah. If he'd maybe concentrated a bit more on that game, we might well have done it. But anyway, it all fell apart, didn't it? That Chelsea game, which was not great. Neil says Dein and Wenger, one of the most formidable partnerships in football history. Yeah, and I mean, just David Dein, even before Wenger, with George Graham as well. What success he had. John says there's an interview on YouTube where he gives an insight into the power struggle that was going on. Oh, is there? I'll have to look out for that then. Because interesting stuff. John says Gazidis was using Russian money. Was he? Well, yeah, he probably was actually. Yeah. Mark says, yeah, we got a club DJ, Jerome Anderson. I think it was Jerome Anderson. Yeah, he was the guy that started sort of playing the music at Highbury when David Dean come in. They got rid of the band and brought him in. And I think he ended up being an agent, didn't he, for some of the players as well?
It was. Yeah, he was an agent.
Yeah.
I think he was Ian Wright's agent.
I think he was. I think he was. Yeah, I think he was agent quite a lot of the players, wasn't he, at one time back then? But yeah, he did well for himself. Going from a DJ to an agent, that's not bad, is it? That's not a bad career change, is it? So, good stuff indeed. Java says, a question to the panel: do you guys think Jesus needs to do more in terms of scoring goals? Well, obviously he needs to score more goals because he's got 5 in 11 games, which isn't bad. But he hasn't scored for a while. He's looked a little bit off his best. I mean, Jerome, do you expect Jesus? To me, he's not a 20-goal, 25-goal a season striker, is he? I don't think he's going to get that many goals, is he? I just don't think he will.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're very lucky to have him. I think he's a fantastic footballer, but he's not a natural predatory finisher, is he? That's not his game. If it was part of his game, he'd be the best in the world. But that's not his game. He'll contribute a lot to our attacks. He'll help sort of set up chances, cause a lot of mayhem at the back for the other team. But yeah, he's not a prolific goal scorer. But if he can, score, between 15 and 20 league goals, that'd be amazing. But yeah, I'm not expecting him to score 30 league goals. Look, what did Lacazette, our striker, score last year? 3 or something. So he's already surpassed that, and he just contributes so much to how we play. And look, it's a joy to watch him as well, isn't it? Like these attackers, that it's making the football enjoyable to watch. Even the last couple of away games where, as we mentioned, we haven't played fantastically well for the whole games, or we've had spells where we haven't played well. We've still had spells where we look bloody brilliant, and Jesus, a lot of that is down to Jesus. But yeah, in an ideal world, he had that sort of half volley at the end of the first half. That was a great chance when he hit it right at the keeper.
And that one-on-one as well, when he got tackled at the end. He lacked a little bit of belief, didn't he? I felt. Yeah,
he didn't hit it cleanly. He sort of scuffed it. I think got a deflection, and maybe that's a part of his game. Maybe he'll improve. He's not a 35-year-old. He's still like mid-20s. So maybe he will improve in that area. Let's hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we've been a little bit spoiled maybe with some of the strikers that we've had. We've had a lot of Golden Boot winners. We've tended to have strikers that have scored 30 goals a season quite regularly. Obviously, Thierry Henry, Ian Wright before that. Van Persie had a 30-goal season. And, we tend to have got more used to that kind of a striker. And, in the last couple of years, as you said there, Joan, Lacazette didn't really score that many. And Jesus is going to score a lot more than Lacazette. He already has done, and he will do. But, yeah, we maybe... I certainly miss a Golden Boot type winning goal scoring in the team. I miss having that, and I don't think the way that we play suits that, does it? We're not going to get that sort of a player with the way that we play, just the way that we attack. It's not like that, is it? It's the goals are more spread around the team. As you can see, we've had 8 or 9 different goal scorers already. And it goes to show how we play is different to some teams that rely on one player. I know, Man City have still got. All their players are still contributing, even though they've got someone who scores 40 goals already. They've still got other, but we don't play like that, do we? We don't have a goal. We've never. Arteta's style isn't to have a goal scoring player. It's more to have 6 or 7 players who contribute goals. Are all going to get 8, 9, 10 goals, and that's probably how he wants. And Jesus fits that, and he gives us a lot more than we had. But yeah, I kind of do miss. I'd love us to win the Golden Boot again with somebody, get a striker in and score 30 goals in a season. Because if you've got a player scoring 30 goals, you're generally going to do pretty well because the team will be doing well, won't they, for them to be scoring that many goals usually. But it's a different style of play, isn't it, Tom? Do you think that, did you think, how many goals do you think Jesus can get though for us? Because he isn't going to get 25, is he? I don't think.
18 tops, 15 minimum, I think, probably as a good punt. But we've got Nketiah who's doing one thing. We've got Jesus. I think we need a striker that can sort of offer something different to both those options.
Plan B.
Yeah, we need someone maybe a little bit more physical. I'll tell you what I saw the other day was Giroud. Lots of clips of Giroud. He was very underrated and slagged off a lot when he was at Arsenal, but I thought he was a phenomenal player. Some of the goals that he scored. I mean, obviously the scorpion kick that was something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, other team goals as well. I mean, he was involved in a Jack Wilshere goal with Santi. Talking about players we missed, Santi Cazorla. I mean, God, how do you replace one of those? You don't, do you? Sorry, whittering on. But
Isn't it a shame, though, Tom? Isn't it a shame that Santi Cazorla played in the team he played in, as opposed to maybe playing in the team we've got now? Because he could have brought us real big success. The great player he was. We didn't have the squad around him, did we, at the time that he played? We had some good players when he played, but we were still lacking in too many areas, and he couldn't do it all himself. Whereas now, I think if Santi Cazorla played in this team now, he's at his best, that could take us to a different level, couldn't it? Because he was a phenomenal footballer.
Amazing player. Such quality. He could offer us so much in so many different areas, in the middle, down the flank. He was just superb. We've never replaced him. You never can.
No, you can't. I mean, I 100% agree about Giroud, actually. I always rated Giroud when we had him. I thought he was a very, very underrated player. He did score a lot of goals as well. Isn't he not the French top goal scorer ever in history now? Did he overtake the record, or he was certainly close to it, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's very close to it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't score the most ever goals for France unless you've got something about you, and he scored a lot of goals for us. And I actually really, really rated Giroud, and I think we could maybe do a player similar to that now. Yeah, in certain games, a player like that would be brilliant to come off the bench and as a battering ram, if nothing. Look at Bamford, what he did when he came on for Leeds. That sort of a player. That we need a player like that we in the squad to come on. Would Arteta use him though? That's the problem. That's the question. I don't know if he would, because it's a totally different style of play. John says there, Giroud is still plugging away. Arsenal let him get away. Yeah, is he playing in Italy now? Isn't he? I think. Is he?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's still banging in goals, isn't he? So what a guy. As Shane says there, the guy from Fulham scored 40 goals in the Championship. Yeah, Mitrovic. Yeah. I mean, he's a big physical striker as well, isn't he? I'm not quite sure if he's an Arsenal type player, if I'm honest. But he's certainly effective. There's no doubt about that. Okay, so obviously I think we've covered Southampton enough. We know what didn't go right and what maybe could have gone better, and we came out of it with a draw. But we have got to finish off our little Europa League kind of section really with the return game against our old friend from who was at Manchester United, of course. Of course, last week's game against PSV was, again, not the greatest Arsenal performance, but we managed to get the victory. Probably deserved it. Of course, that man, Granit Xhaka, in form at the moment, got the goal, as he seems to be scoring a lot more regularly these days. I thought that PSV were very, very reserved in that game last week. And I think at home, they are going to come out and play a little bit more football. And I think that's going to be a totally different type of game this week than it was like. We only need a point to win the group. So, and even if we lost, we only need to beat Zurich in the last game at home to win the group anyway. So it's not the end of the world anyway. But ultimately, we don't want to lose the game if we can. But do you think, Jerome, it's going to be a totally different type of game? Because they looked as they came for a draw, didn't they, last week? And they nearly got it as well.
Yeah, I mean, the first half, it was just sort of one-way traffic, wasn't it? I mean, most of the game it was, to be honest. They had a few counter-attacks, but apart from that, it was all us. This is a fascinating game, so I don't know what he's going to do with the team, Arteta, because up until now, he has rotated, but not massively. He's still kept quite a few first-teamers in, and I'm at the stage now thinking, like, even if we lose this game, I'm more worried about any of our players getting injured, to be honest, or becoming even more tired. I think the game against Nottingham Forest is so much more important and is a potential banana skin for us. So
it is.
I would not send out the kids, but I wouldn't go as strong as what he's done so far. Because like you said, we can lose this game. And even if we we can lose that game, and if we beat Zurich at home, who, let's face it, they're not the best.
No.
And then we're top of the group and we miss out those games whenever they are, February perhaps, like the extra round. So yeah, I don't think he will, because I think he's quite set on just getting this group finishing top as soon as is this Thursday. But that's my little concern going into the game, is that he's going to go too strong and the players are going to be a bit jaded for the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean that's what he's done so far in Europa League, hasn't he? He's gone pretty strong in every game. He's made a few changes, but I mean, if you remember last time we were in the Europa League, yes, maybe the group was slightly weaker that we had, but it was like pretty much 10 changes for the Europa League group games, wasn't it, for the Premier League? And this time it's not been like that at all. He's been very, very strong. And yes, it is more difficult. And the advantage of winning this group is not what we had before. You get a bye essentially in the next round, don't you? So it's a massive advantage to win the group. But we are now in such a strong position in the group, aren't we? Last week's victory has put us, we only need 3 points in our last 2 games, and one of them's at home to Zurich, and you'd imagine we'll beat them regardless. But I agree. It's an opportunity to rotate the squad a lot more and rest some of the key players, which is what I would want to do. I don't want to see players like Granit Xhaka playing. I don't want to see Thomas Partey playing. I don't want to see Saliba playing. I don't want to see Jesus playing. I don't want to see any of them playing on Thursday, because we don't need to play them, because we don't. That game, we don't need it. If we get a result, we get a draw, whatever, it will get the win, brilliant. But we don't need to necessarily. No. And let's give some of these players minutes. Let's play Manquillos. Let's play Eddie and Nketiah through the centre again. Let's play these players that aren't playing. Vieira, give their full game, all this kind of stuff. I would look at doing that. The Congo and all these players. Bring them in and give them game time.
I'm telling you, I wouldn't even bother taking Saka and Martinelli. I'd leave them at home. I wouldn't bother sending them on the plane.
I said that for that game in Norway, and they all played. I was saying on the show the week before we played them, don't take any of them. Don't even fly them over there. What happened? They all played. It was like, what are you doing? And I can see it happening again, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if it's still a fairly strong side, as you said, because he doesn't seem to want to do that, does he? And I don't know why. We can't. It's asking for trouble. And he might think to himself, look, we've only got a few more weeks till the World Cup. Let's just play the games now, play the players now, and then they go off to the World Cup and whatever. Some of them aren't even going to the World Cup. So I don't know. But madness. It seems madness for me. If any of those players play, even travel, I agree. Let's not bother. Let's keep them at home. Wrap them up in cotton wool for a couple of days. Let them have a rest and all that kind of stuff. So they're ready to go on Sunday. But I wouldn't be surprised if most of them play. I mean, Tom, what do you think is going to happen on Thursday? I mean, a draw wins us the group, and I think in back of Arteta's mind, he'll want to get at least a draw, won't he? And I think that'll affect the team he plays personally.
I think he'll go strong. I've got to be honest. I agree with you about, we've got other priorities as well. We've got Forest, which is a much more important game for me. We could just wrap this up with a draw, but he doesn't seem to like doing that. I remember when we played Tottenham, we just needed a draw, and he kind of went out all hell for leather, and it backfired on us. It was one of those things, you take the gamble and you get what you get. But Xhaka's going to play for sure. He's going to take him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just made minimal changes, holding in. Obviously, Turner coming in. He'll just rotate a little bit. Maybe Fabio Vieira coming in for Odegaard. I think he'll just want to finish this one off and get the result. And I reckon we're 1-0 maybe again. But I'm hoping that we finish this off with a bit of flair, with a bit of style, because it's as much as I like the points and all the rest of it, I do like to see a bit of flair and performance as well.
Oh we've actually had that. I think we all do. I mean, you're saying that he'll make those changes, and I think he will. But when he's done that before, he's had all them big players on the bench, and he's brought them all on. Was it in Norway when he brought Martinelli on? He brought Odegaard on. He brought Jesus on. It's like, what are you doing? What are you seriously doing? We were winning 1-0. Why are you bringing on them players and risking them getting injured or getting tired, which is now we've seen. I agree with you. I think he'll make similar. It'll be a similar side that's played in most of the games, and he'll have all the big names, if you like, on the bench, and he'll bring them all on. And it's like, no, don't do that. But I mean, I'd like to see a good game. I think PSV will be. I don't think they're going to open up and be massively expansive, because I don't think that's the way they're going to play. I think they'll still try and keep things tight, but I do think they'll attack us a lot more. I think they've got some good players. That little Xavi Simons, who played last week, he looked very good, didn't he? I think he's 19 years old or something. What a great player he looked, by the way. So, I didn't think that Cody Gakpo played particularly well, but the game didn't maybe suit him, did it? I think he'll maybe look better at home when more emphasis on him to attack and have the ball a bit more. Maybe we'll see, but I think we'll get the draw. Actually, I think it might end up 1-1. Personally, I think we'll get the draw that we need, and that'll be it. And then job done essentially. I mean, what do you think, Jerome? What would your score prediction be then for PSV?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'll be a draw. I'm not sure if we'll win the game, but I'd definitely take a draw. And I think 1-1, like a low scoring draw.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a draw, and as you said, no injuries. That's the key thing. But the more they play, the more tired they get, and it's gonna lead to maybe more injuries. But as you say, and you're right, the game on Sunday next week is, I think, more important at this point in time, and it is, as you said, a potential banana skin. As we saw last season, of course, when they knocked us out of the cup, although that was at their ground, this is at the Emirates and stuff like that, different game. But we saw what happened to them against Liverpool this weekend. Is that going to be the turning point for them? Because they've struggled most of the season. They struggled for consistency. And yes, Liverpool aren't in the greatest form, but to beat Liverpool was a massive, massive result for them. And suddenly now what looked to be a fairly straightforward home game for us now may have its problems. And I do think Forest are actually not a bad side. They've got some good players. When Steve Cooper gets them gelling, a lot of new players this season, I think when he gets them gelling, I think they'll be a good side. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll stay up. And maybe that's starting to happen now. As we saw against Liverpool, they certainly looked a lot better in that game than they had done in some of the previous ones. I mean, obviously, we would expect, we kind of know what the starting 11 will be, assuming everybody's fit. It will probably be very similar to what it's been the last 4, 5, 6 games, because he doesn't change it much. Assuming everyone comes back from Holland in 100% health and stuff like that. So, but what are you thinking about this game in Jerome? Because I think, as you rightly said, a potential banana skin. I think it potentially could be, because suddenly things have gone up for them. They're looking up now, aren't they?
Yeah. I did see their game against Liverpool, and Liverpool they dominated possession. Liverpool had a lot of chances. The goalie played really well, actually, for his keeper.
Yeah, he's decent, isn't he? Yeah.
He had a lot of saves to make. I hope and I think that we will be too strong for them. I think, especially with like the crowd behind us, like it's been this season. It's such like it just gives the team that little bit extra, doesn't it? And I do think we'll have too much for them, despite obviously playing Thursday, depending on which players play. So I'm still quite optimistic about it, but hopefully what the last weekend shown is that, like, not to be complacent, and maybe Nottingham Forest result plus how we ended up getting a draw the weekend, maybe that not will do us good, but it will just sort of keep us on our toes. And hopefully if we do nick an early goal, which we tend to do now, instead of sort of taking our foot off the gas, hopefully we'll go for the second and third and kill the game. Because I think even Southampton's manager said if they would have scored the second goal, Arsenal would have been game over. And when an opposition's manager comes out and says that, like, you think, well, fair enough. Like, because normally people don't admit that, but he sort of admitted it. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, I know we haven't played Forest in the league for a long, long time. We played them in the cup quite a lot recently. The only time they've come to the Emirates was in the Carabao Cup. I think it was 3 years ago. We beat them 5-0. One of Martinelli's first games. I think he got a couple of goals in that game. I think it might have actually been his first game, actually, thinking about it, his debut. And he got a couple of goals. We're unbeaten in our last 11 home meetings with Nottingham Forest in all competition, going back to the last time they won away at Arsenal. Does anyone know when it was?
Early 90s.
No. Tom, you got any ideas?
No, not a clue.
It was actually in the 88-89 season. They beat us 3-1 at Highbury. That was the last time they've won away. That actually every year at Highbury they beat us three years in a row, actually, around about that time, and we only won 1 out of 10 games against them at home through the 80s and into the sort of beginning of the 90s. So they did used to have a really good record away at Arsenal. That was in obviously the Brian Clough days when they used to maybe play on a counter attack and stuff like that. But yeah, they had a really good record. But lately, they haven't won since 1989 at Highbury. So you'd imagine we're going to start massive favourites again to win that game at home. But who knows? Anything can happen in football. We've seen it happen plenty of times. And, who would have thought? I mean, Spurs would have probably won all their home games. They probably expected to beat Newcastle when Newcastle are a better team than Nottingham Forest. But anything can happen in football, can't it? I mean, Tom, what are you anticipating them for this one? Because we should win, shouldn't we? Let's be honest. We should win.
We should win, but that win against Liverpool really sort of messed it up a little bit, because in my mind that was going to be an easy 3 points. Now I think we're going to have to have a little bit of a battle on our hands first off. If we get the early goal, I think we'll actually roll them over, as we've been doing. But that win for me just kind of set the dynamics differently, because Forest are now going to think, oh, well, we've done them, we can go on and do Arsenal now. So they're going to be up. They're going to be, the momentum's with them, and they know that Arsenal have been playing quite sort of patchily in the two halves. But I'm still going to go with an Arsenal win, probably 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a surprise if it wasn't something similar to that, wouldn't it? But I agree. I do think them beating Liverpool is going to give them a massive boost. And the last thing you need to do when you play, when we got a Europa League game, the last thing you need is playing a team that's on the up and, you know, feeling really confident about life. So yeah, that may make a slight difference to the outcome of the game overall. But I would be surprised if we don't win. I mean, Jerome, what will be your prediction? Then obviously Tom's gone 3-0.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. 3-0. I'll go 2-0.
Okay, 2-0. I mean, we haven't actually kept a clean sheet at home in the league this season, actually. In fact, since
2-1.
March.
2-1. 2-1, Rich.
We generally concede at home, don't we? I was thinking 4-1, actually. I was going to go 4-1. Just because I do think we'll concede, because we generally get at home, and I do think we've got too much for them. And they have conceded quite a lot of goals. John has given us some breaking news. He says, just heard Aston Villa have confirmed Unai Emery as manager. Well, there you go. Wow. Unai Emery back in the Premier League at Aston Villa. So, wow, we unfortunately he won't be able to visit the Emirates this season, because we've already played them at home. But obviously we have to visit them later on in the season. But yeah, he does like teams called Villa. Maybe that's why he joined. Maybe he thought it's Villarreal. Maybe that's what he thought it was, not Aston Villa. When he finds out it's Aston Villa in the Premier League, he might change his mind. Think, I'm not going back there again. No, they didn't treat me very well. I quite look forward to his press conferences though, because he was quite amusing, wasn't he, with his broken English and stuff like that. So. It was quite funny, but yeah, that's big news actually, isn't it? Aston Villa, you know, they won 4-0 yesterday, and you know, they didn't see, a lot of clubs would have just said, oh, we've got our little caretaker manager, and he's just won 4-0. We'll keep him for another couple of games, like Wolves did, and some of the others have done. But no, Aston Villa straight in. They won 4-0. No, we're not bothered. We're going to get a manager in. So, you know, fair play to them. And let's see how that works for them, because
I think they've done well there, because Wolves are sort of messing about, aren't they? They reckon in January they might have a new manager. I think that's going to be devastating for them. If they carry on with this current form, they're going to be down.
You can't wait till January to get a permanent manager in. It's madness. You've got to do it pretty quickly, haven't you? I mean, if you haven't got someone in place, you keep your other manager until you do. Surely you don't get rid of a manager when you haven't got a plan in place. That's just madness, isn't it? No one does that, do they?
And it's interesting about Steven Gerrard as well, because he was pumped up after the Rangers gig, and he was going to be this, that, and the other. And they spent quite a bit of money down there as well, didn't they? Or up there, and it hasn't worked out. So be careful what you wish for.
I mean, do you think Steven Gerrard will become a top manager, or do you think maybe his level is Scottish Premier League and that's maybe where he is, or do you think he's got the potential to become a really good manager in the Premier League for someone else?
I think he's got to sort himself out, don't you, Jerome? Sorry, I just think his style of football was confused. It didn't look right. It didn't sit right. He had flair players, and he played quite negatively, really, for me. I didn't really see any real major sort of transformation in the Villa side as from before. He just had better quality players. But Coutinho, what's that about? Spent a fortune. He hasn't really lit the fuse, has he? Really, he hasn't done anything much.
No, he hasn't. But I don't know. Is that Gerrard's fault? I'm not really sure. I mean, he knows Coutinho because they played together, didn't they, at Liverpool? So he knows him. So you'd think that he'd be able to get more out of him. I mean, Jerome, do you think he can become a good manager, Gerrard, or do you think maybe he's just overrated as a manager because he was a good player?
God, it's hard to say, but based on the evidence that we've seen, it's not looking great. But look, you know, we've given our manager a lot of time, haven't we? So with a bit of extra time, who knows? But you know, he's not going to. You know, there was not talk, but I guess people would probably think to themselves, you know, once Klopp goes, if Gerrard does a good job at Villa, maybe he'll get the Liverpool job, but he's a long way off for that now, isn't he? Like if Klopp goes, they ain't going to hire Gerrard, so he might have to go to maybe a smaller club perhaps, and climb up the ladder, sort of going back down. But it's early on in his managerial career, isn't he? He's still plenty of time.
He is, and it's funny, isn't it? Because he's been there. Is it just over a year since he took over at Villa? It's something like that, isn't it? It's not a massive amount of time. And if you think about it, right, when Arteta had been at Arsenal maybe just over a year, we were 15th in the Premier League, right? And Arsenal could easily have sacked him, couldn't we? We could easily have sacked him, and everyone would have said Arteta's not a very good manager. Look where Arsenal were in the league when he was there. And it's a similar situation with Gerrard. And maybe, who knows, if Gerrard had been given more time at Aston Villa, another 2 years, maybe they could have been at the top of the league as well with the right investment. I mean, it is a difficult one, isn't it? Because he is so young into the job. And he's had another job before, which Arteta didn't even have another manager's job before. He was successful at Rangers. Yes, it's Rangers and it's Scottish League and it isn't top level, is it? But I don't know. No. I kind of the whole Arteta thing's made me reassess managers now, because too many clubs get rid of managers very, very quickly, right? They don't give them the time. And you never know whether or not the time would have made any difference. Sometimes it might not have done. Things might have got worse and you get relegated. But as Arteta's proven, if you may be given time and you may be given a little bit of investment, you can improve and you can do a much better job. And maybe other clubs, I'm surprised other clubs aren't maybe looking at that a little bit more and thinking, should we give this guy, we invested in him, we've given him money, we've bought players for him. Can we not give him more time? Look at Brendan Rodgers, everyone said he was going to be sacked a few weeks ago. Now they've won 2 or 3 games in a row. They're moving up the league and he's getting the job done, isn't he? And I know he's had a lot more time. He's been there for years before, but I don't know. I'm kind of thinking now that I used to be quite impatient with managers, not so much Arsenal managers, because we've generally had George Graham was there for years, Wenger was there for years. But looking at other clubs, you look at a manager, you think he's not going to last very long. Get rid of him. He's not doing a good job. But now I'm kind of looking at it a little differently, saying, well, maybe give him 3 years and see whether or not in 3 years' time he hasn't managed to turn things around, because it isn't easy, is it? It's not quick to turn things around at clubs. Steven Gerrard's had a year, and yes, have they improved in that year? No, they probably haven't. And as you said, their football doesn't always make sense. But I don't think Arteta's football often made sense before, did it? In the first year and a half or so, none of it made much sense. So I don't know. I think now clubs should try and give managers, don't overreact too quickly is what I'm saying. Maybe give him a little bit more time. I think Gerrard has got the potential to be a good manager. Actually, I do. I do think he is. And maybe Jerome's right. Maybe he does need a smaller club, maybe to rebuild his career at. Look what happened to Frank Lampard. It didn't work out at Chelsea, did it? And now he's. I'm not saying Everton are a smaller club than Chelsea, because historically they're not. But he's got another decent job in the Premier League, and he's doing well, isn't he, Lampard? I think he's doing a decent job at Everton with what he's had to deal with. So, I think Gerrard could do something similar. Maybe he'll end up at a club like, obviously he wouldn't end up at Everton, I don't suppose, but he might end up at a club like, I don't know, a Southampton type club, and something like that, a little bit. And maybe he can rebuild himself. I hope so, because I do like Steven Gerrard, actually. I think he's a nice guy. He was a good player, and I'd like to see him be given another chance, because I don't think he was given enough time to.
Well, Wolves don't have to wait till January anymore, do they? Just an option.
It's not far for him to go. He could probably keep the same house, couldn't he? If he moved to Wolves, I suppose. So he'd have to and stuff. So yeah, maybe that's an option. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, as well, it's worth making a point that maybe Aston Villa as a club have reacted to the way the fans have reacted to the manager, because it was getting quite toxic and they were calling for Gerrard's head for a couple of matches now. And they seem to, if that had happened at Arsenal, I'm not sure the ball would have jumped and sort of fired someone. But other clubs, they run them differently. And I think they responded fairly quickly to the situation, as much to be seen like, oh, we're doing something about it. We've got rid of him.
Do you think maybe a little bit then? Because obviously when we went through that really bad spell under Arteta, it was during the COVID season. There was no fans in the stadium to be booing him and saying Arteta out, was there? Because the ground was empty. And do you feel as though maybe if we'd had crowd in at that time and the crowd had turned on him, as they turned on Emery to a certain degree, do you feel as though would the club still have had that same patience and that same kind of prepared to give him time that they did do. Obviously, Aston Villa, like you said, I heard the fans the other night when they lost that game, and the fans they was all singing they wanted Gerrard out and all this, weren't they? And it does put pressure on the club to do something. But the same would have probably happened, wouldn't it, if we'd had crowd in that season when we were losing home game after home game, losing at home to Burnley, losing at home to Leicester, not scoring goals, 15th in the league. I think that the fans would have turned at that point, definitely, after what would happen before with under Emery. So did you think that would have, maybe that was why Arteta got more time, do you think? Or do you think the club would have stuck with him anyway, regardless?
It's a hard one, isn't it, Jerome? It's like trying to look in your crystal ball. But yeah, for me personally, I think having no crowds probably helped him a lot, because the atmosphere back then was really toxic. I mean, you used to hear it. I mean, it was terrible. When you speak to Arsenal fans, they didn't have a good word to say about any players or anything that was going on. The performances were dire. The results were crap. So had it been a full stadium, he might have suffered and got the bullet. Might have.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been surprised, actually. It's easy for the club to say, oh yeah, we stuck by him, and this is what you should do. And yeah, maybe that's right. Maybe you should do that. And I started to think maybe more clubs should do it. But there wasn't that same pressure, was there, Jerome, on the club, because the fans wasn't there. I mean, it would have been pretty toxic, wouldn't it? I think at that time, some of them performances at home in particular were terrible, weren't they?
Yeah, I think that what the documentary showed is that the owners obviously have a lot of faith in Arteta, but once the home crowd make their feelings known in such a way like that, and it gets quite aggressive, I think the patience, you're really going to be testing the owner's patience then. And I think if a crowd gets like that, I just think the position sort of becomes untenable, and it's very hard to carry on once you lose the home crowd. Especially like there's a little photo that was doing the rounds recently of like maybe 8 or 9 fixtures during that time, and there was like 1 draw and about 7 or 8 losses, and it just and a lot of them were at home.
Yeah,
no, we were terrible, and I think it. Look, it's just opinions, isn't it? Because we don't know, but yeah, I think he could have gone during that time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other side to that could be, and maybe Arteta would maybe think that perhaps if there was a crowd in, maybe our home form would have been better, because the crowd, as we said before, the crowd lifts the players, don't they? And maybe that a lot of teams had bad home records that season, didn't they? Liverpool really suffered. They lost about 7 or 8 games at home, which they never normally do. We had that terrible run at home as well. So I suppose there's that side to it as well. Would our form have been that bad if the crowd had been in as well? It's difficult. I know we never know, but I do feel as though, looking at the results at that time, if there'd been a crowd in, I think Arteta would have gone before Christmas that season. I really do. And that would have been a year. Exactly the same time that Gerrard's had a year. That would have been a year, December, that he took over, wouldn't it? So he would have lasted a year as well. So it just goes to show, doesn't it? Fate sometimes is a strange thing, isn't it? And maybe it's going to work out well for us in the end that we kept him, because if he takes us to glory at the end of it all, then that'll be the right decision. But it's a shame for Gerrard, but I'm sure he'll be back. But yeah, good to welcome back Unai Emery back to the Premier League. So look forward to seeing how he gets on at Aston Villa. Be interesting things happening there. So there we go. As I say, not the greatest result against Southampton, but we've got 2 games to come this week, and hopefully the performances can improve a little bit on the last few games, and we can get the result in PSV to win that group, get that job done, and then hopefully go out on Sunday and beat Forest more convincingly than the last couple of weeks have been, and get some goals. I think we're due to score a few goals, aren't we? Because the goals have been dried up a little bit, and someone's going to maybe suffer at the end of that sooner or later. And why not let it be Nottingham Forest? And after what they did to us last season in the FA Cup, we need to get back to that. John says it's 2-0 to West Ham now against Bournemouth in tonight's game, so that must be nearly finished now, won't it? So that's probably the result there, maybe. So West Ham have won. They sort of turned things around a bit, haven't they? Following a bit of a shaky start, they're doing okay, aren't they, West Ham? So they won that game. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully we can bang a few goals in Sunday, that'll be nice, won't it? And we'll go into November top of the league then, won't we? If we beat Forest, that'd be good, won't it? Imagine that. November. Who would have thought that? Seriously, at the start of the season, who would have thought November we would be top of the league? Just I still can't believe it, actually. I keep thinking to myself, it must be September. We're top of the league. It must be September. We've only played 4 games. We can't be top of the league all this time. But actually, it's like November, and we are. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, it has been an amazing start to the season, let's be honest. But, you know, it is still early on, and there's a lot can happen. But we're enjoying it, aren't we? I mean, Jerome, you must have enjoyed the season so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're not going to get perfection, are we? We're not going to win. You know, I'm not going to win every game as much as we'd like to, but I'm really enjoying watching these games. Like even when we were playing crap, I was always looking forward to Arsenal games. But now the actual game itself is enjoyable as well, or large parts of it at least. And yeah, full credit to everyone involved, and I hope they can keep it going. And unfortunately, obviously, this World Cup's going to sort of put a bit of a halt to it, but good chance to, I guess, reassess things, see where we are. But yeah, so far, I can't complain. As much as I'd like to, I can't complain.
No, it's difficult to find too much to complain about, really, isn't it? Overall, the way things have gone, and like you said, let's hope it can continue. But the squad strength depth does concern us all. I'm sure it does, but you know, who knows? Leicester won the league with a small squad. They didn't get many injuries. The momentum took them through, so it can be done. But we'll see. I don't think they quite had a Man City team to battle against as good as what we have currently at this moment in time. But anyway, who knows? Stranger things have happened. I'll say stranger things have happened in football. Jafar says, guys, do you think we need to send Sambi, Manquillos and Vieira on loan and replace them in January because they ain't ready yet? Well, I don't think we can really afford to get rid of 3 players out of the squad that we need to strengthen the squad. If anything, bring 3 players in, keep them as well, because we have some options, isn't it? More options, which I think is what we need. Yes, Manquillos needs more time. Sambi needs more time. Vieira needs more time. Are they going to get as much time as things are at the moment? We don't know. I certainly wouldn't send them out on loan in January. I mean, not yet. I wouldn't. I mean, they're important players in the squad, aren't they? Even if they're not going to play as much as they want to play. Would you send them out on loan, Jerome, or not really now? No?
I don't think so. We've got, obviously, the cup competition still. You know, with our injury record, I wouldn't be letting go of anyone yet.
Definitely not, no. Especially as that would mean replacing them 3 plus the extra players that we need to bring into the squad already. So you're looking at 6 or 7 players then, aren't we, to bring in? It's never going to happen, is it?
It's too much business to do, isn't it, in a short period of time?
Not going to happen. So I would say no to that. Tom, would you agree? No to loan?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you've got to bring people in, not send them off out. It's a shadow squad as it is. So you can't go flying people off left, right and centre. You've got to bring a couple of solid players in just to consolidate and keep us in that top 4 in January. But again, as we say, will Arsenal spend? Hopefully they see the sense in it. You have to do it.
Yeah, you do. Even more so these days. It's, if you don't spend the money, you're not going to be successful. Simple as that. You're just not going to be able to do it. It's not going to work. I mean, funny enough that you say that about loans. I mean, we must have 7 or 8 players out on loan already, haven't we? Throughout, you know, we've got loads, haven't we? Obviously, Charlie loan. Ainsley's at Southampton. He's not even playing that much, is he? He's on loan there. Who else? We've got loads on loan.
Pepe.
Goalkeepers. I'm sure we've got 7 or 8 players out on loan, haven't we? The last thing we need is to send any more on loan at this point in time, I would say.
I think Chelsea hold the record, don't they? It was about 33 players they sent out on loan.
Yeah, they always do that, don't they, Chelsea? It's funny, everywhere you go, you watch a game, whether it's in the Championship or the Premier League or somewhere in Europe, there'll always be a player on loan from Chelsea in every single squad, everywhere in the world. every single club's got a player on loan from Chelsea, haven't they? At some point. Except us. They never loan us any, do they? We just get their old rejects that aren't no good anymore.
Yeah.
Mark says we're there on merit, and we had some luck in the Leeds game, but we do deserve to be where. No, of course we do. Yeah, 11 games in, 9 wins. Of course we deserve to be where we are. There's no doubt about that. But it's just a matter of trying to maintain that level now, isn't it? For as long as we can. And top 4 will do me. I've got to be honest. Top 4 will do me all day long. And winning the Europa League, I'd love that as well. That would be the dream, wouldn't it? But have we got the squad big enough to challenge on both fronts on that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we have, as things stand now. But January, who knows? Maybe Father Christmas will be nice to us this year and bring us some good signings in January that will give us the boost that we need to go on and be successful this season. Because, you know, it's been a long time, hasn't it, since we've got anywhere near to winning any of the big stuff, really. be nice if this year European trophy. I'd love that Europa League. You know, that would be, to me, if you had a choice in now, Jerome, between top 4 or winning the Europa League, what would you go for?
Probably Europa League, because that means you qualify for the Champions League, and that's what top 4 is anyway. So yeah, probably Europa League.
And it's a trophy, isn't it? A European trophy.
Yeah.
We don't have enough. So yeah, I kind of agree with that. So what would you given a choice? I do think the league position is important, actually, and probably even more so now. We're top. Imagine if we're top now and we finish 5th or 6th, not in the top 4, but win the Europa League. Would that still be considered a very good season, or would that be slightly disappointing that, you know, the league's dropped off so much?
I think if we could win the Europa League, that'd be great. But I don't want to fall out the top 4. If we finish 3rd, I think that's respectable, plus the trophy. You know, hopefully we finish 1st. Can't see it, but you know, it's a long old season. But a trophy, Europa League, that would be nice on the old shelf. Tottenham fans, you could leave the room now. Empty cupboards in it and fluff.
Exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? You know, we've got this. You know, we've got this history of winning trophies, haven't we? Let's be honest. You know, we've the 3rd most successful club in English football in terms of number of trophies won, and that's something that, you know, I think us as Arsenal fans, maybe that's what we kind of base success on, don't we? Winning trophies as opposed to just finishing top 4. You know, yes, we haven't finished top 4 for a long time, so that would be fantastic. I agree, Tom, and it would seem like a failure to me now if we finished outside the top 4 after starting the season with 9 wins out of 10. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't finish in the top 4 after that, then something's gone wrong, seriously. But having said that, winning that European trophy would be amazing, and it would make up. To be honest with you, I think that for probably, you know, 3 or 4 weeks after the final, if we won the Europa League, I wouldn't care that we finished outside the top 4. I'd just be enjoying the fact that we've won a European trophy. And maybe, you know, later on in the summer when you sit down and think about it, you think, bloody hell, we blew that league, didn't we? Big time. But, you know, sacrifice. Sometimes you have to sacrifice something to get something else. And I think to win that Europa, the prize is the same, isn't it? Champions League football, the prize is the same. Let's win a trophy. That's what I say. Let's go for that. Mark says, Europa League. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I want that Europa League. Actually, I really do want that. I want to win that. But yeah, we should get top 4 anyway. Now we should get top 4 after the start we've had. Didn't they say the other day that no team had ever, or was it only one team had ever got this many points after this point in the season and not won the league? And we're thinking about we might drop out of the top 4. It's like, what's going on? You know, but it's where we are, I suppose, isn't it? Where we.
I think it's just a fantastic time to watch your football again and enjoy it, and enjoy some of the individual performances. Lovely to see Saka come through. It's a shame Emil Smith-Rowe's not around, but it's lovely to see these homegrown players coming through as well. And Saliba has made a big difference. Plus Zinchenko and Jesus as well. I mean, that was a bit of a masterstroke. You know, I know Saliba went out for maybe too long. In some people's opinions, but he's come back. He's a real asset, and he can only get better. He's so composed on the ball. Zinchenko just adds a new dimension in appetite, and he can play on left back, or he can go through the middle and consolidate in the middle as well. He does a lot of middle stuff, doesn't he? And obviously Jesus. I mean, some of the runs that he puts together and the dribbles, he's just dancing past players, and they're sort of looking, what's going on? Just tiptoes through the lot. It's fantastic to watch. It's nice to enjoy an Arsenal team that's young and dynamic and on the attack.
It is. I 100% agree with everything that you just said there, and it is great. Finally, I must admit, I haven't enjoyed much of the last 2 or 3 years. I think the football, maybe even 4 years, the football's not been great to watch at times, and we didn't like we were getting anywhere. And it is nice to be able to sit and enjoy the games now and enjoy some of these players, the performances that they're producing, you know, some great players that we've now got together. It's just, you know, I don't want my expectations to change too much, because I'm quite happy at the minute. I don't expect us to win the league. I'm not even thinking about winning the league, and that's great. And I don't want to become disappointed, because the more your expectations are, the more disappointed you end up becoming, don't you? So to me, top 4 is the aim. That should be what we're aiming for. So far, so good. We're in a great position to finish in the top 4, and that Europa League is there, isn't it? You look at it and you look at the teams that's in it. Yes, there's going to be some Champions League drop-ins, but I look at that. I look what's in that Europa League, and I'm thinking this is our chance, isn't it, to really, really win that competition, really. And now because we've got a little bit in hand in the league now, if we can keep that going, get a good advantage in the top four, and even if we have to rest a few players to win the Europa League, we still hopefully have got enough points in the bag to be able to do that. The Unai Emery season, we were chasing top four, wasn't we? We were in there, and then we were just outside, then we were in there again. We wasn't safe and secure in it. And when we rested players, it cost us points, and we ended up throwing it away. This year, hopefully, we'll have some points in hand. We'll be nice and secure in that top four, and then we can really throw everything at that Europa League in the quarterfinal, semi-final end of it, and that's what I'm hoping is going to be the case. But let's see. It is a long way to go, as we said, a really long way to go. John says there, lads, even the way the FA Cup has been downgraded, it's still important to fans to get a final. No, you're absolutely right. I love the FA Cup. It's been our big trophy, hasn't it? We've won the most. So, but I think this season, I would be prepared to sacrifice the FA Cup for the Europa League 100%. I would be prepared to do that. Last season, we had no excuse to sacrifice the FA Cup because we didn't have Europe. This season, I don't want to sacrifice anything particularly, but if that's what we have to do, I would be happy to do that. John says, look at Mourinho and Roma when they won the Europa League. Exactly. We should be winning it. We should be winning trophies like that. And we've got a great chance this year, and I want us to do it, and it would be great. And of course, then that would mean next season, this time next season, we won't be sitting here talking about a Europa League trip to PSV. We'll be talking about a Champions League visit to Real Madrid or to Barcelona or Bayern Munich or something like that. That's what we'll be looking at, won't we, next year? This time next year, that's what we want. That'll be great, wouldn't it? John's 100% agree. Exactly, that's what we want. We want to be doing this, don't we? Let's do it this year. Come on, let's win that trophy. Let's do it. It'll be great. But we'll see. It's still a long way to go. So I say that is another Arsenal review. Then it's been a bit of a mixed bag tonight. Obviously the Southampton game has been eating away at us a little bit since yesterday, but ultimately, I think we're ending a lot more positively, looking ahead to a big week. Hopefully, 2 more good performances, and what could end up being a historic season for Arsenal, maybe, and for Arteta as well. A really historic season for us, and to get us back to where we all want to be, heading in that direction anyway. It's what we want, isn't it, at the end of the day? We want to see it, don't we? John said, sorry, it was a Europa that's right, it was a conference they won. What, didn't they? Yes, that's right, they did. Yeah, wasn't that when wasn't Ainsley Maitland-Niles there? Wasn't he on loan? Yeah, he didn't play though, did he? But he was on loan, and they did win that last year, didn't they? But yeah,
he went on a different bench.
Yeah, he's sat on a different bench. Yeah, he's done that quite a lot, hasn't he? He sat on our bench, and he sat on where was it? West Brom. He went on loan, didn't he? He sat on their bench for a bit. He went on loan to Roma, sat on their bench. Now he's at Southampton on their bench. So he certainly could be. When he writes his book, he's going to be writing about the different benches he sat on and how different they were. Some of the seats were heated, some of the seats wasn't heated. Some of them had nice, comfy backs, some of them didn't, and some were adjustable and all that. That'd be his book, won't it?
The one I got a splinter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all the sprinters I got sitting on the bench. But, one day he might make it somewhere, because I do quite like Ainsley, but he's something's not right in his head, that he's not got that focus, has he, to become a top player. He's got the ability, I think he has. He just hasn't got the right mindset, as he hasn't got the right focus. And unfortunately, these days, if you haven't got that, you're not going to make it, are you? Which is a shame, because he's a nice guy. I do like him, but. Yeah, I don't. If you can't get a game on loan at Southampton, you've got no chance over it, let's be honest.
I think you're right. It's the mentality, isn't it? If your mentality is not right, you're not going to get a game. And there's something there, because he goes somewhere and they suddenly suss him out and he's not of any use anymore. So, they can't all be wrong, can they? No.
And I've seen him play some great games for Arsenal as well, The FA Cup final, how good was he in that game against Chelsea when he played left back? He's had some great games for Arsenal, brilliant. In midfield, he had a couple of great games for Arsenal. And you look at him and you think, he's the player that we need. And then what happens? He just can't do it again. He just can't.
Did you see that Iwobi goal, Rich? Where he backheeled it for whoever it was.
Yeah, I like that. I enjoyed that.
Look at him. He's coming on, isn't he? Old Iwobi. He was crap at Arsenal most of the time, but yeah, he did.
But he was another one for me. He was another one that you could see glimpses that he had ability. That goal he scored in the Europa League final, actually, talking about that before, he scored that great goal. I know it didn't mean anything in the end. We were losing 3-0 and no one cared. But it was a great goal. And he had those moments in him, didn't he? With us, but he never did it consistently. Now he's playing regular Everton. I spoke to a few Everton fans. They love him. I think he's brilliant now. He's playing really well. So, good luck to him. But yeah, I did see that goal. I did enjoy that. A nice little, thought he was Brazilian for a minute, didn't he? A little back heel there. Great
Yeah, it
stuff.
was nice.
He's
Did you see Theo's theatrics as well when he did that tippy tumble in the box trying to snatch a penalty?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, you don't like to see diving deer going on. It's not what we want to see at all, is it? Really? I mean, to be honest with you, though, he didn't get up looking for a penalty, did he, or a foul? He kind of, I think he realised. I think he was expecting a tackle. The tackle didn't really come, and he'd already sort of started moving out of the way of it. And then he looked like he dived, but he kind of tried to get back up again straight away. It wasn't like he was claiming a penalty. That, to me, that's when you should be booked, right? You should be booked if you go down when you haven't been touched, like Harry Kane does all the time, claiming a penalty. Richarlison does it as well. It must be a Tottenham thing, right? And they're the ones that should be punished, right? If you go down because maybe you've lost your balance or you're anticipating a foul and you jump out of the way and you fall over and you want to get up again and carry on with the game, you don't get booked for diving for that. Saka shouldn't have got booked for diving for that, right? Even when he left his foot in, he did leave his foot in a little bit, right, to initiate the contact, but you don't get booked for that because you know Walcott shouldn't have really got booked for diving either because he was trying to get back up again and get on with the game. He wasn't looking for the foul, and you should only be booked if you look for the foul and you're looking at the referee. Come on, ref! No, you're getting booked for that, mate, because you think it wasn't contact or you initiated it yourself. That's what should happen. They're the bookings that you should get, and I felt a little bit sorry for Theo Walcott, but the referee had to book him because he booked Saka for actually having contact with a player, and he had to book Walcott, didn't he? I suppose. But anyway, John says there, thanks Richard and Co. Again, an excellent show, and to all in the chat, well done, coming you gunners indeed. And John says there, Koulibaly scored at the weekend again. Did he? Did he?
Not sure.
No, he didn't play for Chelsea.
He didn't play, did he? He wasn't. No, I didn't think he played, did he? Unless you mean somebody else, maybe not Koulibaly. It must be somebody else. He's looking at maybe an ex-Arsenal player. Do you mean Koscielny? Did he maybe score at the weekend? I don't know. Is he still playing, actually? I don't know. He's retired now, isn't he?
He's retired.
He's retired, yeah.
He retired, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah, I think the less said about Koscielny, perhaps the better, really, after the way he left us a couple of years ago. But anyway. So anyway, that was the other Arsenal review. I say we're looking forward and looking ahead in positive fashion to the next couple of games and the next few games, hopefully up to the World Cup. And then I don't know what we're going to do. But luckily, the women are still playing, so we'll be fine. We can watch that, can't we? Get us through. Because I think the World Cup. Are you going to watch much of the World Cup, Jerome? Do you think?
I will watch it, but I'll just be hoping that our players stay fit during it. To be honest, that'll be what I'll be thinking about.
Yeah, actually, yeah. England have got no chance. Let's be honest, have we? We're not gonna do much, are we? Let's be fair. Come on. I like this 53-man squad away, a 55-man squad. Is that like every single English player that he can find? Just name them all.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
I don't know who came up with that idea.
No, madness. Anyway, what they should do. What England should have done was last year they should have got Gareth. They should have got Eddie Howe to manage the team. That's what they needed to do. Then we might have had a chance of doing something. But not with that Southgate. We've got no chance, have we? But anyway, it's all good. We'll watch the England games. I'm sure we will, and hope for the best. But that's about as good as it's going to get, isn't it? Really. But anyway, it's just an absolute plain postponing the important stuff for something that is just all about money in a country that shouldn't even be hosting it. But anyway, that's another issue for another show, perhaps. But anyway, it's been good fun. Anyway, it's been great chatting. Jerome, good to see you again. Have you enjoyed coming on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you very much, Richard, and cheers, Tom, as well. It's been great. Thanks.
Cheers. Nice to meet you.
Angie,
it's been good fun. Good to see you again. And Tom as well. Good to see you as well, my friend. You enjoyed yourself tonight?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. Nice mixed bag. Something to get your teeth into, and all these little differences we have, but we all support the Arsenal.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? At the end of the day, if everybody thought the same about everything, it'd be quite boring life, wouldn't it? It's nice to have people that have different opinions. Ultimately, yeah, like you said, we're all here for one reason. We're all here because we want to see Arsenal doing the best that we can possibly do and be as successful as we can. And that's what we all want. And, how we go about doing that is up for debate, and that's what it's all for, isn't it? So it's good fun. But it's been good. It's been good to obviously to see you two guys in, and thanks to everyone for watching. All you guys in the chat as well. Lots of chats coming in tonight, which was good. Some interesting stuff there as well. We will be back. Actually, your dad's back on Wednesday, Jerome, to do the Hybrid Matter show.
Yeah.
he's actually got a really, really special guest coming on. And I'm going to tell you who it is actually, because it's exciting. It's actually Tom Watt, the former EastEnders actor, Tom Watt. So he's coming on Wednesday to look back at some great Highbury memories. That's going to be really good because Tom's got some great memories of, he's been on this channel before. Doing other stuff, and he's got some great memories, so that's going to be a really good show. So definitely make sure you tune into that. That's on Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and then on Thursday there's 2 bloody games, one after the other, which is annoying. So I'll be here from about 5 o'clock until about midnight with 2 watch-alongs. The men are playing early at 5:45, and then the women start at 8 o'clock. So thanks to the fixers for that. Again, they did it on for me yesterday. Doing it again Thursday, and then Sunday again. There's 2 games on, but at least there's a break in between those 2, so it's not quite as bad. So we'll be doing all of that, and also as well the women's shows on Friday at 7:30. We'll be looking back on a decent week for the Arsenal women. They're top of the league as well, actually. It's good, isn't it? The women are top of the league. We're top of the league. We're top of the Europa League. The women top of the Champions League. It's all good stuff. What's there not to like? Honestly, what's there not to like? Brilliant. So all you people that support another club other than Arsenal, I feel sorry for you. Unless maybe you're Man City fans, we maybe understand that you might enjoy things a little bit more. But anybody else, you're missing out on all the fun. So come and join us at Arsenal, and you can be top of everything briefly. So that's been the Arsenal review. Then thanks to Jerome, obviously, and to Tom as well. I say you all guys as well. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't miss Melvin's show on Wednesday, because that is going to be something absolutely fantastic. So definitely tune in for that one as well. And we will see you all very soon. I'll be back on Thursday for a double shift, so I'll make sure I've took me tablets and that, so I'm ready to go. We will see you very soon. Take it easy, guys. Thanks to all you guys for watching. Thanks to Jerome and Tom, and we will see you very soon. In the meantime, come on, you Gunners. Let's do this. Come on. Real Martinelli. It's now with Granit Xhaka. Is it going to be the 3rd goal? It is the 3rd goal. Granit Xhaka with it. That seals it.